but why upon your way, Jerusalem, stand face Jerusalem? Blessing of the Sabbath. Baruch Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Asherah Nathan Nawe Ashabak Bashalawam the Amen. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the Sabbath and peace. Thank you, so be it. The Ali Ma'a Asheraya Machad, Psalms 121. Anya Rayam Ayam Ye Oh Hariam Mayan Yabawa Azarya Yabawa Mayahawa Shamayam Waratazela Yanathan Lamawat Regalia Yala Yanawam Shashua Marka Hanela Yanawam Wala Ayeshan Shashumar Yeshurele Yahweh Shamaria Yahweh Tazalia Ayo Yim Yawumam Hashamash La Hakaya Wayarak La Balayala Yahweh Yashamaria Makab Rai Yashamar Napasha Yahweh Yashamar Habalake Wabuaya Ma'aifa wa Aida Wulam Basham Yahweh Shai the water man.
Psalm 121. I lift up my eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord which made heaven and earth. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is thy keeper. The Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth and even forevermore. Amen.
Amen. Shemaiah Yasharela, hero Israel. Shemaiah Yasharela, Yahweh. Allah Yahweh, Yahweh, Akad, Shemai, Yasharele, Yahweh, Allah Yahweh, Yahweh, Akad, Shemai, Yasharele, Yahweh, Allah Yahweh, Yahweh, Akad.
Deuteronomy 6:4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. Amen.
Amen. Tapala Yahweh, the Lord's Prayer. Avinoah, Shabbat Shemayim, Kodash, Hayeh, Shanka, Yahweh, Malakwavka, Taba'er, Tazawanka, Hayeh, Aisha, Baratazat, Kaba Shemayim, Nathan Lanawa, Lacham, Yawam. Zad wasalak nawa kabawak nawa kasalak nawa kabawak nawa wala abiyar nawa oh nasayawan above how shine nawa murad kaya laka hamalakwa wa ala wa thaparak wa walam aman.
Matthew 6:9. After this manner therefore pray ye, Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debt, so we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Amen. Hi, Sharamatazwa, the Ten Commandments. La'ab, Yahayab, Lakab, Alahayam, Akarim, Alpanyab, La'ab, Aishab, Lakab, Paso, Wala'ab, Thaibadam, La'ab, Lakwaka, Shamwa, Yahawab, Alahayaka, Lashawak, Zakar, Af, Hayawam, Hashabath, La Kodashwa, Kabad, Abiyakab, Wa Amakab, La Ab, Taratazak, La Ab, Tanaab, La Ab, Taganab, La Ab, Tainad, Shakur, La Ab, Tachamad, Ko, Ashrab, La Ra'ika, Aman.
Exodus 20:2. I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day, to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work. Thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy father giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. Amen.
Aman. Shabbat, be seated. Barakatha Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shai, Asheran, and now Parya Gapan Tawara Aman. La Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shai, Af Yasharala. In this translation, blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the fruit of the vine, thank you, so be it. To Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, with Israel. Amatwa, Panyua, Jerusalem, stand and face Jerusalem. Barakatha Yahweh, Haggadah, Rakawam, Nabiyah, Wanawa'eh, El Yawan, Malak, Shao, Shamayim, Warataza, Wakadabarim, Kayayam, Wagam, Mamashiach, Mayahawe, Rawanawe, Habnawe, Hapaleb, Yahweh Aitaza, Yahweh Zakarnawe, Yahweh, Bartazawan, Ainka, Yash'ala, Izarnawe, Bane, what's up? Yash'ala, oh, Nanawe, Yem Yen, Aipa Kayawamyam Makudam Babakushay Shalak Mike Allah Watazudak Alahayam Magla Maganawa Raparnawa Washama Alnawa Bakwa Shalak Haroka Shao Yahweh Lanawa Lalabadnawa Rabian Kakama Tabawana Wada I Shao the Barka Basham Yahweh for Wada Them Gad Why Willam Maman. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, the great, merciful, mighty, terrible, most high power, King of heaven and earth and all things living, and also the anointed from Yahweh, our Lord, our friend, the wonderful counselor, Yahweh Shai. Remember us, Yahweh, favorably your people Israel. Help us build and gather Israel most high, we beg you. Right now, like the days of old, please send Michael and the righteous powers to protect us, heal us, and watch over us. Mainly send the spirit of Yahweh Shai to us to teach us much wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of thy word. In the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you. Always and forever, so be it. Repeat the Hebrew only. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the law. Barakatha Yahweh, Bashim Yahweh Shai, Ashereth, Nathan Lanawa, Hathorah. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us light to see. Barakatha Yahweh, Bashim Yahweh Shai, Ashereth, Nathan Lanawa, Award, Lara Awath. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the ram's horn to call the people. Barakatha Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ashereth, Nathan Lanawa, Karan, Ha'ayo, Lakoret, Ha'aim. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the olive oil to anoint Israel. Barakatha Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ashereth, Nathan Lanawa, Hasheman, Zayef, Lamashek, Yasher Allah, Yeshabwa. Be seated.
Unplugging this, pull it directly at the head.
Okay.
If we pull it from the cord, that's how you get messed up, because inside it's not that solid.
All right. Thanks for the heads up. Okay, so Shalom Yasharala.
Shalom.
So Shalom everyone that's with us here in Philly. Shalom to everybody watching us on the live stream, and Shalom everybody listening in on the teleconference. Welcome to Ha Yasharala Kanaz, or the Congregation of Israel, where we teach that the descendants of slaves, as well as the indigenous peoples found mainly here in the Americas, but also scattered across the four corners of the earth, make up the southern and northern kingdoms, the 12 tribes of Israel, and that we as a people have fallen to a lower state politically, economically, and even religiously, because we broke the laws of God found in the Bible given to us by Moses. But that the way we come out of this lower state is by turning back to these commandments we broke by following Jesus the Christ, who even Moses wrote about and said to hearken unto him, right? Which those were people at that time who had the Spirit come upon them, were able to acknowledge that Christ was indeed who he was, and not thinking that he was just some sort of imposter, right? Thinking back on his exchange with Peter, where he said, flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, right? That's what he told Peter when he realized who he was, being the Son of God. So we hope to pick up where the apostles left off in these last times. There was a falling away as predicted by the Apostle Paul. Think of what we've been doing these last couple of decades as we've been waking back up to this truth, God's people. We're like the continuation of the book of Acts, right? We're like Acts 29, Acts 30, Acts 31. We're that continuation now. Teaching the truth, putting the word out there, getting God's peoples ready, and the world ready at large for what's to come. The true gospel, the true good news. So, one way we do that is by keeping the Sabbath holy, from Friday sundown to Saturday sundown. And as our particular branch of Christ does, we go into a regular Sabbath service. This week we're back in 2 Kings, or I should say in the Old Testament, and we're reading in particular 2 Kings 23 and 24. If you guys remember last time you were here, we read about Hezekiah's two sons, his son and his grandson that came after him, who went back into wickedness like those that came before Hezekiah as far as the line of kings. But now we read about Josiah, who was his great-grandson, that he was very righteous, right? We're going to see just the moves that he makes to restore Israel to its former glory by being very adamant about what Israel not dealing with idols anymore and breaking the commandments and all the things that lead to dealing with false gods, but that being a central theme. And then we'll also get to read about those that came after him as well as we get into the latter parts of the lesson. All right, so my name is Nabia Zerbabal. I have the pleasure and privilege of going through the Sabbath lesson with you guys today. You can write down for your notes that according to the Gregorian calendar, today is November 16th, 2024. And according to the Hebrew calendar, or the solar lunar calendar, as it's also referred to as, today would be the 8th month and the 16th day. Once again, the 8th month and the 16th day. All right, so 2 Kings 23. Let's see where we left off last. So last we were talking about in the end of chapter 22, we read about Josiah renting his clothes after looking through the law and all the things that he hadn't grown up seeing, and renting his clothes and saying, "Oh my gosh, how is it that we as a nation are going off this much, right? Falling from the way of righteousness, dealing with idols. We need to stop this." So now we're about to read about his legacy and his efforts to take idolatry out of the southern kingdom with the kingdom of Judah, and then to return Israel to a restored state of following God's righteousness. So this is 23 now and 1. It says, "The king sent, and they gathered unto him all the elders of Judah and of Jerusalem." Verse 2, "And the king went up into the house of Yahweh, and all the men of Judah and all the inhabitants of Jerusalem with him, and the priests and the prophets and all the people, both small and great. And he read in their ears all the words of the book of the covenant, which was found in the house of the Lord." Right? So he's gathered them all together to now what? Read to them the words of the book of the covenant. Right? So it's very reminiscent of what we read about during the time of Ezra and Nehemiah, right? And then before them, Zerubbabel and Jeshua, where we're going back into the land to restore things, right? At least at that time, it was much later, after the temple was destroyed, which we haven't gotten to that point yet in Kings. But very reminiscent of that as far as gathering the folks together to get them to hear the word as a reminder of what we lost, first spiritually and physically. So all the folks are there. It's a grand event, and it's good for us, especially from the king, to hear these words, to hear these laws, statutes, commandments that were always written, and to serve as a reminder of what we always should have been, how we always should have been following the Lord. So it says at the last part of verse 3, "And all the people stood to the covenant." I think I skipped the verse. Verse 3, at the top of verse 3. "And the king stood by a pillar and made a covenant before Yahweh," or an agreement, "to walk after Yahweh and to keep his commandments and his testimonies and his statutes with all their heart, with all their soul, to perform the words of this covenant that were written in this book." And all the people stood to the covenants. That's what I started at the bottom there by accident. So he made a covenant to say, look, this is what we're going to do going forward, right? I know my father may have ruled a certain way, and it's the father before him, but we need to make sure we're following the Most High court of truth. It says in verse 4, "And the king commanded Hilkiah the high priest and the priests of the second order and the keepers of the door to bring forth out of the temple of Yahweh all the vessels that were made for Baal and for the grove and for all the host of heaven. And he burned them without Jerusalem." It says without, it just means outside. So it's another way of saying outside of something. So you see, within it means inside, without means outside. We just don't use that word like that in today's modern American speak. "In the fields of Kidron, and carried the ashes of them unto Bethel." Right? So now getting all those stone statues and amulets and everything else, different items, vessels, right, that were made for Baal, which, you go into that word, just means Lord in the Canaanite. But this false god that had been very popular, even going back to when we first came into the land and had to establish it for ourselves and rename it Israel after Canaan had it. These are old gods dying hard, as there's been this trace of us keeping this horrible tradition of serving Baal and also the host of heaven associated with them, right? Where you have the stars, and then they're supposed to be representatives of the gods according to their beliefs. Or we could depict the gods like we might do with the zodiac today and say, oh, this shape here represents this, this shape here represents this figure. It's one thing to do that just to remember where the stars are at. That's one thing. But to now deify them, to make them into gods, that's unforgivable. That's where we get into worshiping the creature more than the creator, like we see in Romans chapter 1. That's what we were doing back then. And Josiah is reading the law and seeing clearly that that's wrong, that we're not supposed to do that. He's coming into a clean house. And he says he took them and brought them to this place, Kidron. And it says, and carried the ashes of them unto Bethel. So utterly burning them, right? Doesn't even matter if they're made of so-called precious materials, burn them down. Verse 5, and he put down the idolatrous priests whom the kings of Judah had ordained to burn incense in high places in the cities of Judah and the places round about Jerusalem. Them also that burnt incense unto Baal, to the sun, and to the moon, and to the planets, and to all the hosts of heaven. So once again, looking at the other nations, looking at Esau, right? Who this is his time to reign. We see he's taken some pretty poor pages out of these playbooks and has reinstituted these things and set these things up and established them, right? To where you wouldn't even think about it. You wouldn't think anything of it as far as, oh, it's just the zodiac. It's harmless. Okay, it's supposed to be Orion the Hunter. Who's that, right? This one here is supposed to be, the big bear or whatever, right? This one over here is supposed to be, Sagittarius, right? And then when we learn astronomy in school, everything out in space is named after what? The false gods, right? Even the planets themselves, as well as like different star constellations, the Pleiades, right? Which that name itself refers back to a Greek set of, I think, deities or nymphs or something like that. So all these things we see being exemplified now, and even when you leave the West, like America, like the European countries, and go like to other countries, you'll see they'll do similar things, and then they have their own names for them, and in their language, but it'll still be doing the same type of naming convention. And if they don't do it openly, sometimes they do it openly, but the innuendo is, these are powers that look over us, that we can look to for help, for guidance. When no, these things are just creatures. Even the stars themselves, the sun itself, is grand as it is, and is bright as it burns, every day to give us warmth, to allow our crops to grow, right? All these different things that the sun provides, as well as the moon. They're still not meant to be worshipped. We can't read it enough, but let's read it again before we continue on. And thank the Most High that we have King Josiah here that's not putting up with this. This is Deuteronomy chapter 4. So I'm sure he got to this when he was reading the law with all the people gathered together and they made that covenant. I'm sure he read this. Deuteronomy chapter 4 and verse 14. So this at this time when this was written, this was Moses speaking to the people on the Most High's behalf. He says, and the Lord or Yahweh commanded me at that time to teach you statutes and judgments that you might do them in the land where ye go to possess it. Take ye therefore as good heed unto yourselves, for you saw no manner of similitude on that day that Yahweh spake unto you in Horeb out of the midst of the fire. Right, going back to the beginning when they first left, right? Verse 16, lest ye corrupt yourselves and make you a graven image, the similitude of any figure, the likeness of male or female. So don't make any figure, be it like a male figure or a female figure. The likeness of any beast that is on the earth, so the image of like a beast, like a carving or a sculpting. The likeness of any winged fowl that flies in the air, so any type of bird. The likeness of anything that creepeth on the ground, so like some type of insect, like it'd be a beetle or whatnot. The likeness of any fish that is in the waters beneath the earth. As you go through these different things that Most High is talking about, if anyone's ever studied mythology, you can probably think, you look at especially look at the Hamites, so-called Africans. From Philistines, they had a god that they made like a fish. You go into the Egyptians, they had a god they made to look like a beetle, right? And you look at across the thing, you'll see across the Hamite nations, they had gods that were made to look like male and female. And they had a similar story, like our story says, where we're made in their image after their likeness, which is the truth. And we talk about the Most High and the Elohim, but then they'll take those stories and kind of twist them up. But the Most High is saying, don't do these things, but the effort being to make them to worship. Because it's not saying it's wicked to sculpt or to make different figurines. It's not saying that's wicked, right? The thing is to make these things for to worship. Like Kaham brought these decorations here, right? We have on the altar here, you can't see with the camera, but this is like a sculpting of a lion. But now having this as decoration is not wicked because we had that in the tabernacle and we had it in the temple afterwards. But now if I were to take something like this and say, okay, let me make this into a god and say this thing created me or helps me with this, that's where I go off. That's where I make myself a fool. And then according to the Most High's perfect judgment, I have to be dealt with accordingly. So let me read on. It says in verse 19, unless thou lift up thine eyes into heaven, and when thou seest the sun and the moon and the stars, that we're reading about in Kings, even all the host of heaven shouldst be driven to worship them and serve them. So you got to bring it all together. Just don't let folks nitpick. Or we go into the Ten Commandments. He says you should not make any graven image. Look at your outfit. Look what you got on. Oh, look at that. Oh, you got a necklace. What's that? Yeah, but I'm not making this thing into a god to worship. It says, shouldest thou be driven to worship them and serve them, which Yahweh thy power have driven, rather divided, unto all the nations under the whole heaven. So yeah, I'll stop at 19, but you guys get the idea. But this is not what we're supposed to be doing. So Josiah said, no more. I made a reference earlier to Romans 1 and 25. I'll read that real quick and then we'll go back. Romans 1 and 25 reads, Romans chapter 1 in verse 25, it says, who changed the truth of God into a lie and worship and serve the creature more than the creator who is blessed forever. Amen. He speaks on other things they did, but I just want to focus on that part in particular based on what we're reading here in 2 Kings 23. So as empires rise and fall, what we can find is a consistent thread as far as the cause to their fall. And it just seems to happen. Just so it seems to happen that idolatry is always in the mix, just as it is even in today with these modern day kingdoms. Rome that fell for a while, but now it has come back. Right, the beast with 7 heads and 10 horns. They've embraced idolatry yet again, and then they've tried to even present it different ways. But if anything, all they've done is just for folks that have eyes that can see and ears that can hear, they can identify this and go, oh, that's what this is. But now it's gotten so out of hand to where people are making themselves into idols. Sometimes knowingly, sometimes in ignorance, like as if this is supposed to be the way that we do things, right? If I have a gift or talent, I'm able to, entertain or to show forth, some sort of skill, then I'm deserving of being worshipped. So the idolatry is become very prevalent in society today. But we can see the root of it when we look to the past. But now back at 2 Kings 23, let me read verse 6 again. It says, and he brought out of the grove from the house of Yahweh without Jerusalem unto the brook Kidron, and burned it at the brook Kidron, and stamped it small to powder, and cast the powder up upon the graves of the children of the people. Right? It's just to add the insult to injury because they did it to themselves. And he break down the houses of the Sodomites. See that right there? That was that next part as you read on in Romans chapter 1. that were by the house of Yahweh, where the woman wove hangings for the groves. So these different hangings were like different dedications, the grove being set up for the false gods. But now it says the Sodomites, right? So we know Sodom is a place, but then Sodomite and that title carried on to represent the behavior that they were most known for. You can just write down to go with the 23 and 7. Deuteronomy chapter 23. In verse 17, Deuteronomy 23 in verse 17. Where it reads, there shall be no whore of the daughters of Israel, nor a sodomite of the sons of Israel. So in the law that what we couldn't just prostitute our daughters out there, right? Times even with the curse, as rough as things get, that should never be. There should be no excuse to just do this to only break this law. You had us do this when we were doing, when we were doing all right physically, whether it was the Northern Kingdom or the Southern Kingdom, and the Most High to judge us for it. To where now, without a righteous mind, now you may be filled or compelled to do this wickedness for wholesale, sell your own body. And then I'll read 18:2 and go back. In verse 18, it says, thou shalt not bring the hire of a whore or the price of a dog into the house of Yahweh, thy power, for any vow, for even both these are abomination or something hated until Yahweh thy power, right? So even on top of that, it says you should not bring the hire of a whore. So if whoredom is wicked, then the hire that whoredom is inspired by, right, or they incentivized by, that's got to be null and void too. You see it referred to as lucrum, right? Or you see in the New Testament they talk about filthy lucrum, right? Or lucre. It comes from the Latin lucrum, which just means money, right? Because it was gotten by ill means. It's like we might see in our neighborhoods where you might be in a barbershop or hair salon and somebody comes in with some stuff for sale. And then, the folks that know better might say, look, I can't buy that. I don't know where that came from, how you came across that. I don't know if that's stolen or how that was earned, right? So, yeah, anything that we do according to vanity to make money, both sides not going to look at that. It's got to be what? According to labor, right? According to righteousness. But any money that's pretty much made off you doing something that's what causing destruction of your people, yourself included, most sides not going to accept that. Back in Romans chapter 1, let me read down. So I read 25 before. Let me read on now in verse 26, just to go along with what we're reading here as far as Josiah and the work that he's putting in to clean things up. To clean up our act as a people, since we have gone astray. Romans chapter 1, verse 26. It reads, for this cause power gave them up unto vile affections, but even their women did change the natural use into that which is against nature. So instead of women being with a man, they have women now being with women, or women trying to change themselves to be more man-like. And sadly, with the science and technology that we had today, we see this taking on a new form or a new level where people are trying to change their chemical balance, hormonally speaking, and other ways. They try to change their sex through cosmetics, external cosmetics, and also through change themselves internally by trying to ingest certain things. It changed the nature as far as how the Most High made them. Verse 27, and likewise also the men, leaving the natural use of the woman, burning their lust one toward another, men with men, working that which is unseemly, and receiving in themselves that recompense of their error, which was meat, right? Which is, different plagues we see, whether it be sexually transmitted diseases or other different types of illnesses. We see this being a judgment that not only fell on them then, but we see falling on us now, which goes right along with Deuteronomy 28 as far as the plagues the Most High will smite us with. Right, just another one to add to the list. So once wicked, always wicked. Right, there's none of this. Well, back in those days they did things like that, but now in these times, it's different. We know how to keep ourselves clean now. That's why they got sick before. Really, all types of nonsense behind how they'll justify sexual perversion in the modern times. But it's that same spirit of wickedness that we see was happening during this time of Josiah, which goes back to as far as we see it written about in the scriptures and being duly noted with the kingdoms of Sodom and Gomorrah, that being a very popular pastime. And we go back to that history in Genesis with Lot and his family. We see what happened there. Even when he was visited by those angels, we saw how the people of Sodom, the men in particular, how they responded to them. So back to 2 Kings 23, verse 8, it reads, and he brought all the priests out of the cities of Judah and defiled the high places that were where the priests had burnt incense, from Geba to Beersheba, right? Which you look at those cities, pretty much the top and bottom of the kingdom of Judah. Beersheba being at the very bottom of Judah, as far as the kingdom, and break down the high places of the gates that were in the entering in of the gate of Joshua, the governor of the city, which were on a man's left hand at the gate of the city. So I like that, the fact that it was situated there on the left hand at the city of the gate, because that physical positioning here actually speaks spiritually as well when we talk about being at the right hand or at the left, where we know the right hand is associated symbolically with righteousness, whereas the left hand is associated with wickedness. And a verse you can write down for that. Doesn't mean if, I'm a left-handed, I'm left, that means I'm wicked, because we know the Catholic Church and other religious institutions, they might take that a bit seriously and kind of overindulge, and they say, "Oh, you can't write with that hand," and hit your hand with the ruler just because you're left-handed. But it's more of a symbolic positioning. We talk about being of the right hand versus being of the left hand, and what that represents in that context. But the scripture you can just write down for that. I'm going the wrong way. This is in Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes chapter 10 and verse 2. Ecclesiastes chapter 10 and verse 2, where it reads, a wise man's heart is at his right hand, but a fool's heart at his left. Right? We're talking about our way of thinking, our frame of mind. So we want to think rightly, according to righteousness, right? Not according to the left or wickedness, right? So, back in 2 Kings 23. 2 Kings 23. Now in verse 9 it reads, nevertheless the priests of the high places came not up to the altar of Yahweh in Jerusalem, but they did eat of the unleavened bread among their brethren. Right? So it says that the ones that were dealing with those high places from before, it says that they didn't come to the altar, but it says they ate the unleavened bread among their brethren, right? So they could partake of the unleavened bread that was for the priests, but as far as coming in person, they did not, because there was much, like I said, a lot of restoration had to take place. As far as cleaning up everybody's act, everybody's patterns of behavior, to get back in line with the Most High and how He was doing things, and then all the different people kind of getting a little bit of a shock factor, seeing that, wow, okay, this King Josiah means business. let me beware. Let me get myself together. Otherwise, I'll be next on the chopping block. It says, and he defiled Topheth, which is in the valley of the children of Hinnom, that no man might make his son or his daughter to pass through the fire to Molech, right? So the children of Hinnom is going to another place, which you'll see associated with hellfire. We see it also referred to in the New Testament, where it'll mention hellfire in certain places. But you'll see a word Gehenna, which is has etymology tied to this place Hinnom, which was associated with what? Them passing the son or daughter through the fire. So when you see that, you may think according to Christian mythology, oh, it's talking about a place that our souls go when we don't do what we're supposed to do. We don't repent to Jesus. We go to this place and get torched. But no, it's talking about a physical place. Just like the lake that burned with fire and brimstone that hasn't happened yet. That's talking about a physical place on this level, right? That hellfire that you might see referenced in the New Testament is talking about a physical place. And that's where it goes back to.
What verse you on?
Verse 10. It goes back to this place, Hinnom. And it says it in many places, but we could just write it down again, because we read it over in the past Sabbath services. But Leviticus chapter 18 in verse 21. Once again, because this also horrible this horrible custom was brought back into effect again by Josiah's father and his father before him. But Leviticus chapter 18, in verse 21, where it reads, and thou shalt not let any of thy seed pass through the fire to Molech, neither shalt thou profane the name of thy God. I am Yahweh. This Molech being a false god, in past times depicted as a bull with a man's body. Sometimes his hands were out like this, and the flame, it was a fire pit under his hands. He would put the child on the hands of this thing, or he was like this, but then he had his mouth would open up, and you could put the children inside, and the fur was inside his belly, and they would put the kids in there, which is just horrible, horrendous to even consider. For this type of custom become popular, and people do it and see, oh, this is blessing us. This is help making our lives easier. Let's do it more. What a horrible thing. But clearly, it's something that, like we said, Esau, he's brought back into play, right? With this thing got exposed a couple decades ago. This Bohemian Grove, this meeting that the elite have, mostly of Esau, but then he might invite others that have, made their bed with him. But in their depiction, they have him set up as an owl. Esau likes to take idols and remix them and change them around, change the stories around. But you have this big statue of an owl of Molech, which you had photographs of. You look up online. Why even name it after that? There has to be some sort of connection. So reading on in verse 11, 2 Kings 23, it reads, "And he took away the horses that the kings of Judah had given to the sun at the entering in of the house of Yahweh by the chamber of Nathan Melech, the chamberlain," who I think is a eunuch officer, "which was in the suburbs, and burned the chariots of the sun with fire." Right? So this tradition, this wicked tradition of having horses drawn by chariots, and this supposed to represent the passage of the sun. It's supposed to be associated with the sun when it comes to this form of deifying the sun through horses and chariots being drawn. He had to deal with this too, because just to see this is going to be a reminder of, oh, okay, I guess it's cool to worship the sun and do it in different ways, whether it be through song and dance or building these things, and other methods and practices that we see these Hamites getting into. But now it says, reading on in verse 12, "And the altars that were on the top of the upper chamber of Ahaz, when the kings of Judah had made, and the altars which Manasseh had made in the two courts of the house of Yahweh." So now going back in time a little bit to what we read about in the previous chapters of Kings, we see it being touched on here. As far as this reference here, as far as what it talks about Manasseh here, we just write down chapter 21. Second Kings 21. We'll just read 4 to 6 and then go back to what we left off, just as a reminder. We read about this just a couple of Sabbaths ago. 2 Kings 21 and verse 4 reads, "And he," referring to King Manasseh, who would have been King Josiah's grandfather. It says, "And he built altars in the house of Yahweh, of which Yahweh said, In Jerusalem will I put my name." Then it says in verse 5, "And he built altars for all the host of heaven in the two courts of the house of Yahweh." That's what we're talking about here, these courts that are being, as we're going to see, he's going to take those down. And then again, verse 6, "And he made his sons pass through the fire," going back to that Molech worship, "and observed times, and used enchantments, and dealt with familiar spirits," so getting into divination, right? Like today we might refer to it as like tarot, or like looking at horoscopes, trying to predict future events that way. "Dealt with familiar spirits and wizards. He wrought much wickedness in the sight of Yahweh to provoke him to anger." I'll stop there because we already went through King Manasseh before. But just a callback to this, where Josiah is really going through all different places of Israel, even the things that the past kings set up and said, look, God said we're not supposed to be doing this. We got to take it down. We got to get rid of it. And what better way to set the tone by leading by example? Just so you guys know that this is serious business, because as we were reading throughout Kings, we see that happen like time and time again. We'll see, at least in the southern kingdom, you'll see more righteous kings than you would in the northern kingdom. If you just add them all up, it'll say he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord, right? But then it'll say, but the high places weren't taken down; they were left. So you see that where it's just like a stain, even though those righteous kings' names, where it's just like, well, I'm going to do the right thing, but then they'll still allow the other people to do their wickedness, Whereas the Most High is like, no, for the kings that do rightly and then compel the people and command them to do right by me too, and follow through with that, those are the kings that I truly remember. And we only have those three that we can look to, because they're the ones that followed through and went all the way to serve the Lord their God with their heart, soul, and mind to the best of their ability, and then had a zero tolerance policy when it came to idolatry. So yeah, 2 Kings 21, 4 to 6 to link with 23. in verse 12.
Is the conference line open?
Yeah. Yes. So reading on I'll read 12 from the top. And the altars that were on the top of the upper chamber of Ahaz, which the kings of Judah had made, and the altars which Manasseh had made in the two courts of the house of Yahweh, did the king beat down and break them down from thence, and cast the dust of them into the brook Kidron. And the high places that were before Jerusalem, which were on the right hand of the mount of corruption, which Solomon the king of Israel had builded for Ashtoreth, the abomination of the Zidonians, and for Chemosh, the abomination of the Moabites, and for Milcom, the abomination of the children of Ammon, did the king defile. So check that out. The Mount of Corruption. I have it on my side caption here, the Mount of Olives. So they put, because back at that time, they put the remains of what he had set up there and left them there. So they just were there. So I guess, like I said, Josiah's going over looking at every nook and cranny, lifting up furniture, going through places that you might have forgotten about. Even going back to Solomon and saying, "Oh, why is that even still around?" Right? Take this thing and destroy it. Do away with it, right? Because this goes back to what? 1 Kings 11. When you read 1 Kings 11, it tells you this. 1 Kings 11. I'll start from verse 5. So link with chapter 23 and verse 13. First Kings 11 and 5. It says, "For Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Zidonians," which oftentimes you saw her worshipped as like a pair or like a wife to Baal, a false male god, right? That's one thing you see that's a through line for a lot of different pantheons of gods or groups of gods. This top male and top female god, where the male is usually worshipped at the time of winter and associated with hunting of some sort, whereas the goddess is worshipped in the springtime, oftentimes associated with harvest vegetation. So going to these gods, for your necessities, right? Your livelihood, whatever that, however you make it, purvey that livelihood as far as food, clothing. You had idols that you associate with that, and oftentimes those idols were tied to things that were in the nature that God made. But it says he went after Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Zidonians, after Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. So you got even the so-called Japanese had this thing called Milcom they dealt with. It says, "And Solomon did evil in the sight of Yahweh, and went not fully after Yahweh, as did David his father. Then did Solomon build a high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, in the hill that is before Jerusalem, and for Molech, the abomination of the children of Ammon." There's Molech again. We can't get enough of Molech. But see what it says, the hill that is before Jerusalem, because when you go into it, it talks about what? The Mount of Olives. When you look at where the Mount of Olives was situated, where Christ gave his signs at the end to his disciples. There's a lot of history in that place, and we'll read about some of that history right here, right? So it's referring to that same region. But if you look on the map of where Jerusalem is, you see the Mount of Olives, it's like to the slight north right of where Jerusalem is. And in verse 8, "And likewise did he for all his strange wives, which burnt incense and sacrificed unto their gods." Right? So these bad habits we want to do away with. Once again, Josiah is he's doing a thorough, deep cleaning. He wants to take away any memorial, any memory of Anything that Israel may look at or find and go, oh, well, I remember this. Yeah, that was a quote unquote good time we had that under that king, right? He let us do what we want and deal with this idol and that idol. Josiah, as we see here, he's not playing. He's cleaning all this stuff up. But now back in 2 Kings 23, I'm gonna read 14. That link with 23 and 14 we just read. 2 Kings 23 and 14, and he brake in pieces the images and cut down the groves and filled their places with the bones of men. Check that out. So their bones, burning them, making ashes, right? So pretty much anything that people would defile themselves with, that's where their remains would go, along with the remains of those idols now that people revered and set up and decorated, now being brought to powder and soot. But now reading on in verse 15, it says, moreover, the altar that was at Bethel and the high place which Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin, had made, both that altar and the high place, he brake down and burned the high place. Instead, to small the powder and burn the groves. There it is again, that same work. And now it's a callback yet again. Let's go back to 1 Kings 12. Another callback, right? Another, I guess you call it a rogue gallery of bad choices, right? Made by the kings of our people to set these things up. But that's just it. When corrupted, foolish behavior is very popular, what are you to do? It's similar to what we see today, right? As was warned when Paul wrote his letter to Timothy about what we'll see in the last times. People being loving themselves, people being high-minded, traitorous, etc., etc. When these things prevail, and you're one of the only few that wants to do righteous or do righteously, now you're the odd person out. Now people can gang up on you and go, oh, who are you over here trying to do the right thing or try to do, what you claim to be righteous, right? When it's not popular, that's when, it could be dangerous just to live your life according to righteousness.
Right. So when we read all these things, right, what King Josiah is doing, he's pretty much cleaning the house. Now, fast forward it from his time to our time now, all these things is being done on a greater scale, except it's being done COVID. Right? So that's why Romans 1:25 says, we'll change the truth of God into a lie, right? But now it's done as a cover-up. Now it's hidden in plain sight, even though we have the scriptures. Remember back then, Josiah was ruling for years before he uncovered the law, the contract, from the temple. Then once he find out, then he starts cleaning the house. Now we have it everywhere. We have the Bible everywhere. We have the laws everywhere. Yet things are even worse than it was back then. But people cannot even see that to happen.
Yeah.
Because for the most part, it's hidden in plain sight.
Time. So now this is 1 Kings 28. Chapter 12, verse 28 to go with the 23 and 15. Echo to a sinful past. And it's funny too because we're in the 18th month and the 16th day. So I guess it's a belated, I don't want to call it a celebration, but sad Jeroboam's Day, everybody. Sad Jeroboam's Day. Because the 8th month and the 15th day yesterday was what I'm about to read here. Check this out. 1 Kings 12 and 28, right? What timing? How ironic. Whereupon the king took counsel and made 2 calves of gold. This is talking about King Jeroboam, right? Son of Nebat. And said unto them, it is too much for you to go up to Jerusalem. Behold, thy gods, O Israel, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. Because he didn't want his northern tribes that were with him, because we was a split at this point. He don't been going down to Jerusalem to then go to Rehoboam, Solomon's son, and give their offerings and their tenths, etc., etc. He felt like, oh, if they go down there, then they'll sway their hearts and minds from following me. So let me set this up. The Most High said, don't do, and it had the people. And he went back to a point of history before this that was supposed to be looked at and looked at and discussed. Oh God, how can we do that? And then bring that back to life. Oh yeah, the golden calf. Yeah, that was a good thing in history. Like no, and don't make any memorial like unto it. But that's what he did. Behold, thy gods, O Israel, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. It's like this thing you see now and even then with people who are like leaders, influential when it comes to having a sway on certain people's hearts and minds, and they'll just say, "Listen, man, I know you condemn me for this, that, and the third, but I had to give the people what they wanted. I had to speak to the people's, I had to, humor them at their lower level by giving them this or allowing them to do that. I did it to appease them, to control them, so we wouldn't have, mass hysteria. I did what I had to do, but it's like at the people's expense, So it's like, how does one toe that line, right? Is order for order's sake, even though the people are defiling themselves? So that's something we got to look at. I know everyone's talking about this new Gladiator movie coming out. As you saw, the young king, the young Caesar Commodus. That's what his thing, right? Because his father didn't approve how his virtues, but he approved of Maximus' virtues. And you see, he said, I want to give the people entertainment. I want to give them the gladiator arena, right? So they can enjoy, bloodshed and debauchery, things like that, to appease them. So we see this being along a similar line with Jeroboam is doing here. It says, and he, back in 1 Kings 12, verse 29 says, and he set the one in Bethel and the other put he in Dan, right? So Bethel's kind of like in the middle, like right where Judah stops and like Israel starts. We look at the split, but then Dan is like northward, at the very top of the plot of land that was considered the northern kingdom. But then Beersheba was like this. Anytime you see Beersheba reference, just think of like the bottom part of the kingdom of Judah, where that border ended. Reading 1-31, it says, and he made a house of high places and made priests of the lowest of the people, which were not of the sons of Levi. So they even go about taking, use one thing to just say, okay, I'm going to get the sons of Levi to do the priestly work and the sons of Aaron, but then just have them go about things wickedly, right? He said, I'm going to get just different families altogether to be priests for these false gods. I think that might be, for better as opposed to worse, because God forbid you defile the sons of Levi and more specifically the sons of Aaron. But that's what he did. But now look at what it says in 32. Jeroboam ordained a feast in the 8th month on the 15th day of the month. That was yesterday. Like unto the feast that is in Judah, so he offered upon the altar. So did he in Bethel, sacrificing unto the calves that he had made. And he placed in Bethel the priests of the high place which he had made. So he offered upon the altar which he had made in Bethel, the 15th day of the 8th month, either month which he had devised of his own heart, and ordained a feast unto the children of Israel to be offered upon the altar and burnt incense. So, like I said, we're reading about King Josiah cleaning house. Let's bring it back to memory, all these things that we did before, right? Even our most notable kings, right? They may have done many great things, but they might have something in their life that's like, oh, this here became a stain for him. Even though they may have done this and that, this here was just like a blotch on their record that we pretty much have them recorded forever. Yeah, link that with 23 and 15 of 2 Kings. But now back in 2 Kings 23, let's read on in verse 16. It reads, and as Josiah turned himself, he spied the sepulchres that were there in the mount, and sent and took the bones out of the sepulchres and burned them upon the altar and polluted it according to the word of Yahweh, which the man of God, the word of Yahweh, which the man of God proclaimed, who proclaimed these words. And he said, what title is that I see? And the men of the city told him, it is the sepulchre of the man of God, which came from Judah, and proclaim these things that thou hast done against the altar of Bethel. Right? So another callback. Let's get this again, right? Because this man of God, right? What's this referring to? So let's go back again one more time to get this this historical reference. So we're kind of getting some Romans 15:4 action here, just by this reading that we're going through now. So 1 Kings chapter 13, and then I'll start from verse 1. So 1 Kings chapter 13 and verse 1, it reads, and behold, there came a man of God out of Judah by the word of Yahweh unto Bethel, and Jeroboam stood by the altar to burn incense. Verse 2, and he cried against the altar in the word of Yahweh and said, O altar, altar, thus saith Yahweh, behold, a child shall be born unto the house of David, Josiah by name. Check this out. This is the power of prophecy right here. And upon thee shall he offer the priests of the high places that burn incense upon thee, and the men's bones shall be burnt upon thee. It says, and he gave a sign the same day, saying, this is the sign which Yahweh hath spoken. Behold, the altar shall be rent, and the ashes that are upon it shall be poured out. As you read that, I can go into no more details, but I think you guys get the idea. But this happened many centuries before where we're at right now. But and still, may have taken time for it to happen, but when the Most High says something's going down, it may take a long time from our perspective. Oh, Most High, where you at? You said you're going to do this, but when's it going to happen? Most High, look, Most High not going to waste time to tell us anything if he's not going to do it. It may not be on our time, but it's definitely coming. So here we are in 2 Kings 23, where this right here is being fulfilled in 1 Kings 13. So 23 and 17 of 2 Kings, you just link it with 1 Kings 13. I stopped at 4. You can keep going down, but you can just write that verses 1 to 4. But back in 2 Kings 23, now I'm in verse 18. And he said, let him alone, let the man move his bones. So let his bones alone with the bones of the prophet that came out of Samaria. Right? So now I said, I just read 1 through 4, but another reference from 1 Kings 13 to go with that last part. 1 Kings chapter 13. Just going into the introduction. Yeah, 1 Kings 13, and hold on. I'll jump down to 11, where it says, and there dwelt an old prophet in Bethel, and his sons came and told him all the works that the man of God had done that day in Bethel, in the words which he had spoken unto the king. And they told him also to their father, right? So now we have this record of them communicating this. And as you go down to the end of this section, when this man finally dies, we jump down to around verse 31 and 32. It says, "It came to pass after he had buried him that he spake unto his son, saying, When I am dead, then bury me in the sepulchre wherein the man of God is buried. Lay my bones beside his bones. For the same which he cried by the word of Yahweh against the altar in Bethel, and against all the houses of the high places which are in the cities of Samaria, which are in the cities of Samaria, shall surely come to pass." So all these things written, all these things appointed, these records here, and then now, like I said, they're coming to cash in. It's like, putting like like you guys were talking about last night when it comes to like a stop order, trying to have the stock not get sold until a certain point. So it's like saying, okay, look, when this time comes, this is what I want you to do. So I'll put this in my last will and testament for me to be buried here, all to be connected to and to signify what this man of God said concerning Jeroboam, concerning his house, concerning what's going to happen here in Samaria, concerning the fall of this altar is being set up. So I read 1 Kings 13, verse 11, and then I jumped down to 31 and also read 32. Link that with 2 Kings chapter 23 and verse 18. So now back in 2 Kings 23 and 19, it says, "In all the houses also of the high places that were in the cities of Samaria, which the kings of Israel made to provoke Yahweh to anger, Josiah took away and did to them according to all the acts that he had done in Bethel," which we've been reading about, right? But going back to verse 15, it's just what? Taking the stuff, burning it down to a powder. It says, "And he slew all the priests of the high places that were there upon the altars, and burned men's bones upon them, and returned to Jerusalem." So we can't emphasize this enough that Josiah was not playing, right? He was letting the message be known that this will not be tolerated. And any memorial, let's bring it back to remembrance, anything we did before, any of our kings that were before that went against the Most High, we got to do away with it. Anybody still around that still wants to serve one of these false gods or carry on in wickedness according to what these false gods promote, you got to go too.
You imagine seeing the king come into his throne, standing for the Most High, his law, and then carrying out a campaign that says we're about to go out throughout the cities, the countries, and kill all these men. We're gonna kill them because that's what they did. A righteous killing, right? But imagine you living around that time and you seeing them going into these different places and grabbing these men out and killing them right then and there to rid wickedness or evil out of Israel. Today, people would call that, they would say that was blasphemous, right? They say that that's wicked. Now, granted, you would not do that today because, Christ didn't come to condemn; He came to save lives. So now we have it based on faith. Yahweh Shah and the angels going to make that justification. But back then, it was deemed righteous by the Most High because we know in the scriptures the Most High deemed Josiah as one of those righteous kings to the end, right? He never defected. Mm-hmm. So when we read this and we see what he was doing, and it's like, yeah, he went and slew all the priests of those high places, killed them, pull out the sword, off with their necks, right? Put them in the pit, burn them, right? And people are watching. So it was meant to be a deterrent. But, imagine the 2/3 of our people who were witnesses and said, this guy's evil, man. This guy's treacherous, right? Not understanding the will of the Most High. But You know, when I hear and read things like this, it's like you gotta put yourself in that time. How would you accept that? How would you visualize that or stomach that to see that? Would you say, "Con"? Would you be like, "Oh man, what is he doing?" Like, you know, there's a lot of thoughts and things that go on with a person's mind when they're witnessing some of these things. So
Family and friends too.
yeah, imagine if it was a relative of yours that they was wrapped up in wickedness and they grabbing them out to go and slay right there in the midst of the people, right? Exactly. That's like when you read in Deuteronomy when it says you have a rebellious son, right? You got to take him to the gate,
right?
And then if that son doesn't want to get himself right, he has to be stoned. So it takes a righteous stomach to be able to agree and say it is this the Lord's will.
I wanted to add too, so that people don't get carried away when we say Christ did not come to when we read in the scriptures, Christ did not come to destroy man's life but to save him.
Right, John 3.
Right. At the same time, he doesn't take away the killing because Christ himself, he's gonna kill people. He give you grace, but it's not giving people license, right, to continue sinning and then thinking that you're gonna get away and not get killed. Right? Because in Matthew 10:34, it tells you, you know, he did not come to send peace on earth, but a sword. Right? At the same time, he brings peace, but not to take advantage of that peace or that grace, right, to get carried away.
Come. That's good, especially for camp, right? To bring out both of those, right? That we like being justified, for example, right? We can go into the verse people know about. It says, you know, it's only by the faith of Jesus Christ. And it says that the works of the law, by works of the law shall no flesh be justified. So by reading that by itself, you're like, oh, see, it's just the grace. Then you read another verse in the New Testament that says, but the doers of the law shall be justified.
Right.
So it's like, so yeah, like you said, Christ is coming to bring that grace. But at the same time, you got other scriptures like in Thessalonians where it says, in flaming fire taking vengeance on them that know not God. And it says that Christ is going to come with the holy angels, like you said, to kill. So we got to read both. We can't just look at one and then cover up the other. Can't do it. But I got the Matthew 10:34 reference. What's the reference for destroyed men's lives? Just put it in our notes. I think it's in more than one place, right?
Which one? As far as for the condemned?
I can. You were saying about but the Savior.
Yeah, that was John 3. John 3 and 17.
Oh, okay, that one. Got you. It's got the one here in Luke where it says the Son of Man is not come to destroy men's lives, but to save them. Same idea.
Mm-hmm.
John 3:17 and Matthew 10:34. Yeah, but it's funny because you know you read John 3:17, you know people are like yeah, because right into John 3:16 they kind of nod, but then we'll read Matthew 10:34, and you know so-called Christians they'll get a knot in their stomach, right? Oh, you can see their face change it right there if you read it. And we look in the look, we say, what? What? This is red letters. Why are you making that face? Did you forget? Christ said this, you know? Kind of like that parable about the talents. And one of those gospels at the end, he's like, and those my enemies that I should reign over them, he says, bring hither and slay them before me. Red letters. That sounds pretty harsh, right? For the image most of us have in our head about Jesus, right? That he wouldn't, harm a fly. Right, the image we had got him looking like somebody somebody was at Woodstock, right, hanging out with John Lennon and the rest of these guys. And it's like that's not the Christ of the Bible. That's an image that you were given. That's a counterfeit. That's not the real Christ. But yeah, that's its own topic, though. Will the real Christ please stand up? And it shouldn't be a shock either, because going back to the Mount of Olives, since we know we're here in the Second Kings 23, they made reference to that place in history that went down there. On the Mount of Olives, Christ told his disciples this, right? He said, many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. So it's just, as they say, par for the course, right? It's just according to a plan, according to scriptures. So if our people are the other nations, you're going to see so-called messiahs, right? And then people will make certain general statements like, see, look, you got a messiah, they got a messiah. What's the difference? You know, you might call them this, they call them that, but it's all the same. Just like God. You know, you call him this, you worship it on this day, I'm worshiping on that day, but it's the same God. You know, same Messiah, you know? It's like, nope, it's not. But back in 2 Kings 23, now let's get on a more upbeat note, right? Now we're about to get into a famous event that we always associate with Josiah as far as his keeping of a particular holy day. Verse 21, back in 2 Kings 23, it says, and the king commanded all the people, saying, keep the Passover unto your power, as it is written in the book of this covenant, going back to verse 3. Surely there was not holden such a Passover from the days of the judges that judged Israel, nor in all the days of the kings of Israel, nor of the kings of Judah, but in the 18th year of King Josiah, wherein this Passover was held to Yahweh in Jerusalem. Right? So, like I said, this is something you can always look to and remember this as far as, and look to that example as far as, we want to keep the Most High's holy days and make sure we cover all the bases, but then there's even room to enhance what the Most High has given us as well, right? To keep it on a even higher level, right? I'll give a scripture. First, I'll give the scriptures that are connected to this. So with 23, 21 to 23, so chapter 23, verses 21 to 23, you can just link up 2 Chronicles. We'll go into more detail, but we'll go into those details, especially when we go through Chronicles, right? And sometimes it could be tempting to kind of read both at once, since they kind of link up. They do link with each other. But then 2 Chronicles 35, 1 to 17, you could also link in the Apocrypha, right? This Passover is referenced here as well. First Esdras chapter 1. First Esdras chapter 1, all the way down to about verse 22. So First Esdras chapter 1, verse 1 down to 22. That's how this book of First Esdras started. It's talking about the same time in history, as far as keeping a Passover like no other. Kind of, like I said, somewhat reminiscent of when we read about the Passover that Joshua kept, right? When we crossed over the Jordan River during his time. So even it exceeding that one. And that was a great Passover as well. The Passover under Joshua when we got to the Jordan River, that being one for the record books as well. So 2 Kings 23. Oh, that's right. Write this down too. I almost forgot. Ecclesiasticus.
It's still one with the Passover precept?
Yeah. So Ecclesiasticus chapter 43 and verse 30. Ecclesiasticus or Sirach chapter 43 and verse 30, which reads, when you glorify the Lord, exalt him as much as you can, for even yet will he, the Most High, far exceed, and when ye exalt him, talking about us, put forth all your strength, and be not weary, for you can never go far enough. And this can be applied to many things, but it's certainly applied to this Passover that Josiah kept, where we kept the Passover, covered all the because when it comes to obeying the Most High, it'd be easy to go all out, like when we were kids, go all out and give something to our parents that they didn't want, or our guardians that they didn't want, but something we wanted to give. But you want to make sure paying heed to, just like you paid heed to your physical parents or physical guardians growing up, as far as what they want, you want to make sure you cover those bases first. Then you can add on the garnishings after that. So Josiah is an excellent example of that, of giving them to the Most High is just due, and then even exceeding on top of that. When you read the particulars about this Passover, how it was kept, and all different dedications made unto the Lord. So yes, Josiah was doing a lot of killing, right? But at the same time, it was like we said earlier, it was all for the Most High, it was all to show forth the Most High, to give forth His praise, to get the people to understand the power that we have through the Lord, and to not forget. How the Most High delivered us out of Egypt, out of the hand of the Egyptians, and how what perfect of a holy day to do it, because that's like one of the key themes, right, that we're reminded of during Passover. To remember that as strong as Egypt was, the Most High said, you know what? Because I love you, because you're my people, I'm going to take you out of there, and I'm going to show the Egyptians my power, since the Egyptians were like a dominant empire in the earth around that time, if not the strongest empire. So it was easy for Pharaoh and his gods or his leaders to go to their head than to think. We have all this power as far as, power over resources, right? We have all types of crops. We've got power through art magic, through our priests that deal on the left-hand side, that deal with, magic and things like that. So they really got beside themselves. So how suiting for Josiah to really go in on Passover, right? Just as a reminder, so that they didn't think for any moment that, oh, you know what, maybe we're too harsh, by killing all those people that were dealing with idols. No, not either. It's right on time and it's right on message. Back in the 2 Kings 23 and now verse 24, it reads, once again, 2 Kings 23 and 24. Moreover, the workers with familiar spirits and the wizards and the images and the idols and all the abominations that were spied in the land of Judah and in Jerusalem did Josiah put away, that he might perform the words of the law which were written in the book that Hilkiah the priest found in the house of the Lord. Right, when they found that book earlier in the we read this last Sabbath. But another reminder, right? You can just write it down. But to go to verse 24, Deuteronomy chapter 18, right? We had the that laundry list of all the different things that we shouldn't be dabbling in, that we shouldn't be dealing with, right? This included. So yeah, it's kind of crazy to see how much happened from the time of King Hezekiah, right, to the time of King Josiah. You just had two succeeding kings, right? One met his end rather quickly, right? But yeah, from the time of King Hezekiah to King Josiah, we saw just how much damage just those two did, right? from Manasseh, and then from Manasseh, I think, to Ammon, and then from Ammon to Josiah. But this is Deuteronomy chapter 18. You just write down from 9 down to 14. I'll just read the part that says, in verse 10, there shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire. We read before, or at either divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or a consulter of familiar spirits, or a wizard. See that? There we go. Or a necromancer, right? And like I said, not to go into all this all over again, but just think you guys know, if you don't already. Mosiah said, for all that do these things are an abomination to Yahweh. Because of these abominations, Yahweh thy power to drive them out from before thee. So Josiah is doing the Most High's good work here. We see here in verse 24, back at 2 Kings 23.
What's you read?
Deuteronomy 18, I just referenced 9 down to 14. I only read one or two verses within that. And it talks about us being perfect with the Lord our God by rejecting these things. So once again, King Josiah, righteous on both accounts as far as doing the Most High's righteousness and putting forth all his strength to do that on a high level, and also putting strength into coming down against the wicked idolatrous practices of the nations, right? And doing, like we said, we can't say it enough, a full-fledged deep cleaning, right? And we see even in the carnal sense, as we see, these changing of the guards, if you will, between administrations, whether it's the blue team or the red team, and with the Orange Julius Caesar now coming back into power, right? We see a lot of people concerned about, he's gonna go down there and take care of that border, right? ICE gonna have a field day and go house to house and deport all these people, right? Some argue the opposite. No, he won't do that because he wants to keep the cheap labor, and so you see these similar attempts in these times, right? To go out there and clean house. Who's I remember seeing a video of the guy that the president to be, right? The guy he wants to appoint to be his secretary over that division. That the guy's like he's all about his business, right? You see him doing these different Senate hearings and stuff, and he's just like saying, "Look, if you're here legally, it's fine, but if you're not, we're not playing games. We're coming. We're coming to clean house." And everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, who is this guy?" So it's you see what we're in interesting times, right? From this time leading up into when that inauguration takes place, right? As we were kind of been discussing these last couple classes and Sabbaths.
Right. Just wanted to say on Josiah's killing, he's pretty much exercising what was done when Moses came out of the mountain, and the Mosai ordered that the people that were doing idol worshiping at the golden calf to be killed. Right. So it's not something that is far-fetched that he would get rid of those who commit wickedness. Because in Exodus he tells you, Moses said, "Thou shalt have no other gods before me," and he's a jealous God. So that's one thing you don't play with. Right? So it's pretty much even in Genesis it tells you, for the making of idol was the beginning of fornication. Right? So that's a heavy thing, just to have idols running in the country, by the priest that's supposed to be doing the work. So also the killing can write down Exodus, the 32nd chapter, verse 25 to 29, where it tells that when Moses came down and said, "Who's on the Lord's side?" Right?
What was that verse again? Sorry.
Exodus 32, verse 25 to 29. So that's pretty much a killing for righteousness, to get rid of wicked in our sight. But some people got to get killed because they're already infested, with wickedness. There's no way, unless you get rid of them, there's no way they're gonna reform to begin with, because they already been, infested with the privileges of wickedness.
Come out with the old and with the new, right?
Okay.
I think you referenced Ecclesiastes 14 and 12 as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what it says. 14 and 12?
I think it's Wisdom of Solomon. That's Ecclesiastes. The devising of idols, the beginning of spiritual
Right.
fornication.
Yeah.
Yeah, Wisdom of Solomon 14 and 12. You guys can write that down too. Come. So in 23 in 2 Kings, and we got those links. We got the Wisdom of Solomon 14 and 12, Exodus 32, 25 to 29, and then before that, Deuteronomy 18, 9 to 14. It says back in 2 Kings 23 now, verse 25, and like unto him, was there no king before him that turned to Yahweh with all his heart, and with all his soul, and with all his might, according to all the law of Moses? Neither after him arose there any like him. And we already read, already had you guys write down Ecclesiastes 43 and 30 that talks about that, right? So King Josiah wanted to be remembered, right? One for the record books, as they say. And then we read it before, but in Ecclesiasticus chapter 49, where we see those three kings that of the house of David that the Most High reckoned. Ecclesiasticus chapter 49. And verse 4 and also verse 5. Ecclesiastes 49, verse 4 and 5 reads, all except David and Ezekias and Josiah were defective, for they forsook the law of the Most High. Even the kings of Judah failed. So a whole line of kings. Those are the three that Most High is like, yes, these are the ones that, while they might have made mistakes or had misjudgments at times, they still fully sought me out. There wasn't any time where I could look at them and say, oh, they went to go and serve other gods willingly, right? We don't see that record for these three. And it says, therefore he gave their power unto others and their glory to a strange nation. And that's pretty much what we've been looking at throughout history. Our people going into captivity time and time again, this now being the last and final captivity, thank goodness, to where hopefully we can take a page out of Josiah's book and say, okay, even might not be on that same scale of King Josiah, at least in my own life, let me see if I can establish some level of righteousness and go above and beyond the call of duty.
Right. Also can reference Deuteronomy 6 and 5. He exemplified, what loving the Most High with all thy heart and with all thy soul. So that's pretty much his accomplishment, right? Because he went all out.
Mm-hmm.
And besides him, besides the Most High, besides Christ, he exemplified loving, by his action.
The first great commandment, according to our Lord and Savior, right? You should love the Most High with all your heart, your soul, and your mind.
So he had the power in his hand as a king, so he exemplified that by going out and clean Israel from that beginning of fornication, which is idol worshiping. And which is now, it's pretty much like I was saying, like I said earlier, it's dormant, it's covert to the point where you can't figure it out, but it's all around you. It's all around. Wickedness is all around. It's in your dollar bill, Egyptology, signs, all that is the money that you use every day is there, right? That's why the Most High says in Job 9:24, the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covereth the faces of the judges thereof. To the point where now we don't even know, who the wicked is. He even cover himself as being the wicked. Right now, you can't even figure it out.
It's true. It's true. According to their own people, they had this concept. They call it the externalization of the hierarchy, right? They probably taken on different names from that time, but they talked about this back in the 1800s, where they said, yes, we want to take all the things we do in the occult and the hidden, and we want to infuse them into all the aspects of society, to where, books, movies, music, television shows, you see it there. Even something as harmless as, a box of Lucky Charms. Lucky Charms? What the hell is this? Who's this? The leprechaun? Who's this supposed to be? Right? To, your TV shows that, or books that kids get into, from Harry Potter to the Star Wars to this to that. You'll see it just infused in so many different things, to where it's made to be like good. It's made to be like, oh, I want to get into that. That looks kind of cool. Even if I fantasize about it, someone just fantasize about it. Others want to say, I actually want to do it for real. What's that commercial used to be going back in the day before? Was it McDonald's? Before they had the ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Before that, they had the do you believe in magic? And I hope you do. Over there. You always got a friend wearing big red shoes. I don't want a friend wearing big red shoes. I don't know about you. I don't want no friend like that. I'm cool.
Wickedness become fun. Wickedness become, the thing. Yeah. So you're doing wickedness and you love doing it because you don't know what you're doing wickedness.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like a class in of itself, right? I'm sure we could probably point out so many things that they pretty much infused. Stuff we grew up with, And we wake up to the truth, it's like, oh man, I really like those stories. I really like that show. Now it's a matter of just a teaching piece. We can look at that and break it down and say, yeah, this is what this is going into. So that those that come after us can be more the wiser. So back in 2 Kings, I'm in chapter 23, now I'm in verse 26 now. 2 Kings 23 and verse 26. Notwithstanding, the Lord turned not from the fierceness of his great wrath, wherewith his anger was kindled against Judah, because of all the provocations that Manasseh had provoked him withal. Right? So while he did come clean at the end, we can always look to that too, right? As far as his prayer we read about in the Apocrypha. But what's done, especially what's done from a high place, especially if you're in authority, these things have to be answered for. And it was prophesied still, even though it's not going to read, not necessarily go down during Josiah's reign, but unfortunately the kingdom of Judah, for all Josiah's goodness and righteousness, even Hezekiah, who was not too long ago from him, just maybe a century or so back, it still wouldn't be enough to save the kingdom as a whole, and who end up falling into a similar fate that our northern tribe brothers fell into some centuries before, right? That's where we're getting up to as you get to the end of 2 Kings, because we only had a couple more chapters left. Actually, this chapter, the next chapter, and the chapter to that, and then we go back to the beginning again, as far as Chronicles.
It's interesting when you read about, you mentioned Hezekiah, how the Most High commends them as being, one who turned their hearts to the Most High, and that there was no king before or after them that was like unto them. And he says it for both of them. Mm-hmm. So you know what the Lord feels about David. So it's like we know those three are put up on a pedestal. But it's interesting how there has to be some silver lining of their disposition or something they did to get distinguished, that there was no king before them or after them that was like him, right? Because he said that for Hezekiah, and he also said that for Josiah. So it has to be something specific that the Most High is comparing everyone to that man, and then everyone to that man. So it's qualities that Hezekiah had that Josiah didn't have, but it was still righteous, and qualities that Josiah had that Hezekiah didn't have, but he was still righteous.
Right. That's why I referenced Deuteronomy 6 and 5. Like him in his specific situations, how he went out all the way to keep the Passover, such as never been done before, even after. So him, he pretty much pointed on that part right there.
I guess we could say Hezekiah's claim is, taking it to the Assyrian army, right? All of them, all almost 200,000 of them, and telling everybody, hold the line. Most sides got our backs. Don't be afraid. Like our discussion last night about the Syrian tongue and them trying to scare the people. Everyone falls before our King Sennacherib. All the nations. You guys will be no different. Take the knee and everything will be fine. It's just like.
And regardless of how we play our part, that's not going to stop the Most High from accomplishing what he said he was going to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we read right there too. And they say even with all that, the Most High still was angry, and he's still going to have to do it because his word will not go out void. He said he's going to do it. It's not going to go back on his word.
Yeah. Here comes verse 27. Get ready, y'all. The Lord said, I will remove Judah also out of my sight, as I remove Israel. And I will cast off this city, Jerusalem, which I have chosen, in the house which I said my name shall be there. So heartbreaking that is to read. Just imagine the Most High feels having to say that. But like you said, my word shall go out null and void. My will is to be done.
It's Isaiah 55:11.
This is like the ultimate, it's going to hurt me more, it's going to hurt you, right? And of course, us as the child, we're like, no, it really hurts. It really hurts. Like, because it's hard for us to see from the parent/guardian's vantage point, right? Most High, it really hurts. No, no more. It's just like.
We even see that with Yahushua, right? Get to a point Yahushua said this. Should be your will to take that cup away from you. Most High said, listen, that was the deal. There's no going back.
What was that verse?
55:11, I'd say.
Just to write it down, you were saying?
Go ahead.
Okay. So now, verse 28, it says, now the rest of the acts of Josiah and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Judah, which getting ready to start those pretty soon, right? Which we know what Kings it starts right after 2 Samuel, but Chronicles goes all the way to the beginning, then goes into the history of the Kings. So it's going to be a fun time going back into those names, right? And all the beget, so-and-so beget so-and-so, who beget so-and-so, who beget so-and-so, right? So you might be like, come on. But all those names and all those figures, when you go into each one of them, they play a role. They play a significance, right? And they can address a lot of questions we may have, right, when it comes to how we got to what we had today with the lands and the borders that different nations have established. When you go back to the Chronicles, a lot of those things are answered. You may just not notice. Why do they speak that language? Why do they dress like this? Why are they in this region of the world? Go back to the Chronicles, go back to the Table of Nations. You're like, oh, here's the answer right here. How can I not see that? Right? Gotta go back to the records, man. Gotta go back to the book of records. Go back to the Chronicles. So now in 29, it says, in his days, Pharaoh Necho, king of Egypt, and then you can, I think it's pretty short, but I'll read the one in Chronicles for this. In his days, Pharaoh Necho, the king of Egypt, went up against the king of Assyria to the river Euphrates, and the king Josiah went against him, and he slew him. Rather, he, referring to Pharaoh Necho, slew him, Josiah, at Megiddo when he had seen him. Right? It says, and his servants carried him in a chariot dead from Megiddo and brought him to Jerusalem and buried him in his own sepulchre. The people of the land took Jehoahaz, the son of Josiah, and anointed him and made him king in his father's stead. So first, let's just get this in Chronicles, where it's going to give us a little more details, because it's going to talk about even Necho coming out to warn about even something the Most High had him see in a dream concerning King Josiah, right? Because remember, the Most High is dealing with Israel, but then the Most High looks at the kings of other nations as his servants also. We read that some time ago, going back into, I think it's in Isaiah, where it talks about Cyrus being the Most High servant, right? Who's in the palm of his hand. Anointed. Even calling him his anointed, exactly. Mm-hmm. Everything belongs to the Lord, right? All we're just chess pieces on the board. And the Most High is, playing both sides of the board. He's pretty much playing himself in chess. But now this is to link with 29 and 30. Let's go to 2 Chronicles real quick. 2 Chronicles 35. And I'll start from verse 20. So 2 Chronicles chapter 35 and verse 20. And it reads, after all this, when Josiah had prepared the temple, Necho, king of Egypt, came up to fight against Carchemish by Euphrates. So you had this conflict going on between these different warring nations, right? They were top empires in their respective times. But just because the empire falls out of the top spot doesn't mean it just ceased to exist. They still may carry on for some time, and they still might have issues at times when it comes to, borders for land or borders for, ports. Who has access to certain resources, right? So they're fighting with each other. But then it says this. And Josiah went out against him, but he sent ambassadors to him, saying, what have I to do with thee, thou king of Judah? I come not against thee this day, but against the house wherewith I have to war. For God commanded me to make haste, forbear thee from meddling with God, who was with me, that he destroy thee not. Right? So Josiah, as righteous as he was, like we said, we're all flesh. He had a lapse here and didn't take heed to this warning. Even though it's a heathen king, the Most High can still tell them or show them certain things, right? Like we would talk about the prophecies even concerning someone like Alexander, right? I know it's not in the scriptures. The prophecy is there, right, in the book of Daniel. But I think you read in the Josephus, it talks about how when Alexander was going to spread out to conquer different lands, that he came to Jerusalem, and you had I forget the name of the high priest at that time when he came, but they pretty much showed him the prophecy of Daniel. He said, "Oh, okay," and he just more or less kept it pushing. Now, of course, one of his successors of the Greek Empire would be a big thorn in our side much later, but he didn't come down against us at that time. He let this be because he saw that according to the prophecy in Daniel, that he was going to be successful. So, because Alexander, Alexander the Greek, he spread out, but at the same time, he would look at different cultures, see what they had going on. Oftentimes, embrace the good and the bad of those cultures. But when it came to us, he saw that and then pretty much gave us the carte blanche. But then later on, like in Egypt, a pharaoh rose up that knew not Joseph, right? A king of Greece came up that knew not Israel, and that's where we see the troubles that we read about in the Maccabees. I just thought that was kind of interesting, kind of reminiscent of this. But yeah, the Most High can give certain signs or visions or show the king certain things, right? Sometimes they can see it and make sense of it. Other times it may come to us for us to interpret if we had that spiritual gift, right? Like during the time of Joseph or like during the time of Daniel. He says in verse 22, nevertheless, Josiah would not turn his face from him, but disguise himself that he might fight with him, and hearken not unto the words of Necho from the mouth of God. See? So yeah, it's the Pharaoh Necho saying it, right? Who's a heathen king, but it's the Most High's words just coming to him to say, those don't need to fight against him. Let them do this. And came to fight in the valley of Megiddo. So not only the people we're talking about, these different nations, but this place, and it's kind of the central part of Israel, Megiddo. This is very important, right? And this is another important event that took place here. You look it up in like different Bible dictionaries. You talk about the Megiddo. This is where you get from the New Testament what they call Armageddon, right? Armageddon, which you look at that, it just means the vale or the valley of Megiddo, right? You'll see it in Joel. He talks about it too, as far as the important battle that will take place here as well. And he refers to it as the valley of Jehoshaphat, also the valley of decision, which, it's not ironic in that Jehoshaphat, right? His name in the Hebrew actually means God is judge, right? So what is it judging but a decision, right? Making a decision, making a judgment. And not just any judgment, but a judgment for everybody, right? The great final judgment. As far as both sides people being delivered, a certain 1/3 of them that walk the straight and narrow path. And then the great judgment that has to come down upon the nations, right? For all the wickedness they've done against us and just to themselves. So yeah, this Megiddo is a very significant place when you read the history on it. It says, and the archers shot at King Josiah, and the king said unto his servants, have me away, for I am sore wounded. It says his servants therefore took him out of that chariot and put him in the second chariot that he had, and he brought him to Jerusalem, and he died and was buried in one of the sepulchres of his fathers. And all Judah and Jerusalem mourned for Josiah. See that? So it was a sad case, a sad event. Him dying in this battle, reminiscent of not exactly the same situation, because as far as Josiah being on a righteous king, but makes you somewhat think of we read about a couple weeks back when we read about Ahab, right? He had that prophet Micaiah who had spoken about what he was shown in the third heaven about the meeting concerning who's going to cause King Ahab to fall at Ramoth Gilead, right? And the lying spirit came forward and said, I'll be a lying spirit in the mouth of his prophets, right? And then he tried to do a similar thing where he went out to battle. He said, what? I'm going to disguise myself, right? So that people won't see me, like as a way to kind of like protect himself from God's judgment, right? If I hide myself, people won't see who I am, and it'll make me less of a target. But we know when it comes to the Most High, it's like, look, if you're marked, it doesn't matter where you go. If you go outside, stay home, hide under a rock, go across town, go into the bottom of the sea, that judgment's going to follow you, because the Elohim always know. Physically, yeah, you might be able to disguise yourself, go over here, go over there, right? But once it's decided, there's no way you can run or hide from the Lord. Even David talks about that in one of his songs, right? Where he says, if I go up into heaven, thou art there. If I go underground, behold, you are there. If I go into the depths of the sea, there you are. So I think for men in general, let alone righteous men, it could be, an unsettling concept, right? Because you want to be able to, have a sense of, control over your life. You don't want to have this idea that fate controls you. You want to at least have the idea that you have a certain level of control over, when your last day may be. But oftentimes the Most High has to humble us in this regard. And we see it even here in the case of King Josiah. Still going to go fight this battle. And it doesn't go into detail as far as, I guess, why he felt the incentive to really do it. We could make, our assumptions. We could probably say, like we were saying earlier, Kahan, Josiah being one to go all out, right, when it comes to being righteous for the Lord, and it being a good thing in the case of Passover, right? But maybe this might have been that same kind of spirit in this regard, but it worked out for it wasn't time for that in this scenario. You know what I mean? But like I said, it's hard to say. Maybe it's something we can ask Josiah in the kingdom. You know, what's going on here? You know, if not, you know, one of us being Josiah right now, we got no idea where Josiah may be when Christ comes back. You know, we can ask. You know, what were you feeling like? You know, what were you feeling like in those moments? Right? What was really driving you to give it to Nico, even after he warned you on the Most High's behalf? Don't fight against me. You know, let me fight this battle against the king of Assyria.
No. How would he know that this king was being led by God?
Led by God?
Yeah, well, he told him that God sent them to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So how would Josiah know that? Did he know that, or he didn't believe the king, or he was just going on this? He just wanted to fight, so he didn't like Egypt or whatever.
That's what I'm asking, because it doesn't really go into detail.
Oh, God.
What verse we on?
So being that he got killed, we believe that this king was sent by God to go and take over that place, right?
Or to fight with that king, right? That Assyrian king.
Right.
That's what we read. Mm-hmm.
Right.
I'm reading 2 Chronicles 36. I started at 20, and I stopped at verse 24 as a link up. With 2 Kings 23, 29 and 30. And we're touching on a little bit about Megiddo, that place.
Which one is Second Chronicles? Not the one.
Oh, 35. I said 36. So yeah. You know, the top says like the next chapter, but then it still has from the previous. So 2 Chronicles 35, 24, 20 to 24. I said 36. Apologies.
I'm gonna read this in the Apocrypha. This is First Esdras chapter 1 and verse 25, which kind of goes into the same storyline.
Yeah.
But it kind of leads to his question. This is now after all these acts of Josiah, it came to pass that Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, came to raise war at Carchemish upon Euphrates, and Josiah went out against him. But the king of Egypt sent to him, saying, "What have I to do with thee, O king of Judea? I am not sent out from the Lord power against thee, for my war is upon Euphrates. And now the Lord is with me. Yeah, the Lord is with me, hasting me forward. Depart from me and be not against the Lord." Howbeit Josiah did not turn back his chariot from him, but undertook to fight with him, not regarding the words of the prophet Jeremy, spoken by the mouth of Yahweh. So the Most High would have had to have given a prophecy to Jeremiah saying that this war, this fight was going to go down. But Josiah did not take heed to that and then continued on, as it says in verse 29, but joined battle with him in the plain of Megiddo, and the princes came against King Josiah. So he disregarded or didn't have knowledge or wind of what Jeremiah was prophesying about. Because like he was reading, I think you alluded to it, where the Most High controls everybody, right? So where the Lord even acknowledges or calls Cyrus, king of Persia, his anointed, or he'll call Nebuchadnezzar, king of the Babylonians, his servant. He'll say, "My servant, the king." So now one would say, "Well, hold on, man. I thought we was the anointed. I thought we was the servants of the Most High. So now it's everybody." No, it's just context, because they now have been chosen or selected to carry out a specific duty, right? That doesn't mean that they are the anointed, chosen servants of the Most High. They are now selected to go and carry out that will as far as for going to fight. right? So Jeremiah prophesied about that was going to happen. The same way Jeremiah prophesied about how Israel was going to go into Babylon, right? And there was nothing that Israel could do about it. So now what we don't always have in context of the scriptures is to say, well, when Jeremiah prophesied this, that Jeremiah prophesied this in the audience of the Babylonians, that they knew about this. Like, oh, that's what we're gonna do? Oh, we're gonna go fight them? All right, cool. We're gonna go take them? Or was just the Most High stirring up the spirit? But we know here that Jeremiah prophesied that these two people are gonna go and fight. And he knew about it because he said, hey, the Lord is saying, he ain't saying his God, because it's now referencing the Most High. So it had to have been someone, a prophet, that would have had that let that be known that they was going to engage in a fight that had nothing to do with Israel at that time. But Josiah did not take heed and went forth and went and got
So he knew that was of the Lord, but he decided to do it anyway. Yeah, okay. That answers the question.
Right. So that same thing you can read in Jeremiah, the 46th chapter. All the prophecies that Jeremiah prophesies about against Egypt.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think when I was saying, I was speaking more specifically to Josiah himself. What led him to do that?
Right. But I was trying to figure out if he knew this was against the Lord by doing that, why would he continue to do that? That's what
that's what I was asking too. But we could ask him.
But
Just like we could ask David, when you counted the people, like, what was it, tell us about that. What was that like? Certain things we just really don't know the depths unless you're that man,
Right.
No, I just wanted to know, did he know that was of the Lord? And, it says he did know it, but Jeremiah prophesied about it. But he chose to disregard what Jeremiah said and decided to fight for some reason,
So you said 46 of Jeremiah.
Go ahead. Yeah, 45 and 46. Chapter.
It's gonna be fun when we get to the major prophets in the Sabbath service. Probably see some stuff we see happening right now. Go, look at that. Jeremiah's talking about these other nations out here acting a fool. Look, they're doing it. All right, so back at 2 Kings 23. I think there's one more verse. When you read verse 25 of 2 Chronicles 35, it talks about what does it say? It says that Jeremiah made a great lamentation or lamenting for Josiah. So when we talk about the book of Lamentations, the Lamentations of Jeremiah, right? A big part of that was him lamenting for Josiah's death as a righteous king, but also lamenting for the ensuing destruction of what come to pass against Israel after that point, which we're going to get into now. But yeah, that's why it's called Lamentations. Because you might have read about that or heard the title of that book and go, Lamentations? What is this? Lamentations. What does that even mean? Okay, it means to cry, it means to mourn over. Oh, I see the titles of the Lamentations of Jeremiah. Okay, I know Jeremiah. Well, what's he crying about, right? So that's what he's lamenting about. But it's that verse 25 back in 2 Chronicles 35. It's explained where it says, I'll just read it real quick. 2 Chronicles 36 and 25. It reads, and Jeremiah lamented for Josiah, and all the singing men and the singing women spake of Josiah in their lamentations to this day, and made them an ordinance in Israel. And behold, they are written in the Lamentations. So there's a reference to the Lamentations being written. And then we have the book of Lamentations, which we'll eventually get into as we keep going through the Sabbath services. So back at 2 Kings 23. I'll read 29 and 30 again, and we'll keep going. In his days, Pharaoh Necho, king of Egypt, went up against the king of Assyria to the river Euphrates, and King Josiah went against him, and he slew him at Megiddo when he had seen him. And his servants carried him in a chariot dead from Megiddo, and brought him to Jerusalem and buried him in his own sepulchre. And the people of the land took Jehoahaz, the son of Josiah, and anointed him and made him the king in his father's stead. So I'll just read this entry real quick on Megiddo. And I talked about it, but you can look it up in a, online Bible dictionary, or if you have like a handheld one, you'll see this history is discussed concerning Megiddo in this place. There's a couple things happened here. So this is on page 355. It reads, "Place of troops." That's what the name's supposed to translate as. It says, "City on a great road linking Gaza and Damascus," right? Damascus being the capital of Syria without the A. "Connecting the coastal plain and the plain of Esdra, I can't pronounce this, Esdraelon," and it references Joshua 12 and 21, also 17 and 11. It says, "Fortified by Solomon," references 1 Kings 9 and 15. Then it says, "Wounded Ahaziah died there." That goes back to 2 Kings 9, right? So he died there in a battle they had at that time. We go back to 2 Kings chapter 9. Then it says, now here's the event we're talking about now. "Josiah lost life there in battle with Pharaoh Necho." References we just read in 2 Kings 23 and 29 and 30, also 2 Chronicles 35, 20, 27. "Large-scale excavations have revealed a great deal of material of great archaeological value." So what does that mean? Wanted to do a diligent search, right? If they were so inclined, they wanted to find out more, even beyond those events, as far as what took place in this Megiddo. But like I said, it'll come up again as we go into the topics. But there's something I thought I'd read since we're here and this is happening. Sondervan, page 355, Megiddo. Yeah, when you're looking at read the book of Joel, it talks about this same region being the key place where the third world war is going to kick off, and the face-off between the nations, followed by the face-off of the nations first fighting against each other. Babylon the Great and their allies, Gog Magog and their allies, bumping heads there, and then when they clash, Christ's going to come back in the midst of that. They're going to stop and then start fighting Christ. But it's going to be a key place where things are going to kick off. So now we've got Jehoahaz, the new king of Judah. It reads in verse 31, "Jehoahaz was 20 and 3 years old when he began to reign. He reigned 3 months in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Hamutah, the daughter of Jeremiah of Libnah." So just the fact that it says reigned 3 months in Jerusalem, we pretty much have an idea of what's about to come next, right? Verse 32, "He did that which was evil in the sight of Yahweh, according to all that his father had done." I'm sorry, his fathers had done. Remember in the Hebrew, right? You might say, wait a minute, King Josiah? But remember, father in the Hebrew, Abba, could also mean just ancestor. So it doesn't always necessarily refer to your immediate father, depending on the context. Right? So we say fathers just mean like those who came before you. Like we might say in English, forefathers. Right? So take it in context. Obviously not talking about Josiah. It's not talking about Hezekiah. Definitely not talking about David, right? But talking about those kings in between that didn't do what they were supposed to do. So yeah. So it says he did that which was evil in the sight of Yahweh, according to all that his fathers had done. And it says in Pharaoh Necho, so he's still on the scene, right? Clearly. Put him in bands at Riblah in the land of Hamath, that he might not return in Jerusalem, and put the land to a tribute of 100 talents of silver and a talent of gold. So just the switching of the guards from righteous King Josiah, right? Where, okay, you and the King Necho are cordial. If you guys need to have discussions, even you got kings giving you the heads up in case you may have forgotten. Don't do this. Your God said not to do that. Right? The Most High goes out of his way to look out for a righteous king. But look how things can just easily just flip, turn upside down when you're a wicked king. Like we see with his son. To where now the Most High stirred up Necho's spirit to where he's just like, hey, you know what? You're not like your pop. I'm gonna get you guys, put this tax on you, this, that, and the third. And now it's just like, oh man, how to go? Things going so smooth at one point. Now we're at odds with each other, and now we got to pay these guys tribute.
Right. It's like it's amazing how wickedness give people a false sense of freedom. So it seems like easier to be wicked than to be righteous. Right? So after all the work that he saw his father done, he said, you know what? I ain't gonna do all that stuff. Too much work. You know? I keep up with these people, man. Let do as that will. That's it. It's much easier. But it's a false sense of freedom because it's gonna get us into big trouble.
Man, oh man. 3 months.
Yeah, privileges, you lay back and do whatever you want, do wickedness. Yeah, you ain't gotta keep no laws and just you got all the money and this party like it's
It's going out of style.
Yeah. Now you got to travel, trying to get rid of groves here, groves there, people coming at you, persecute you, man. I ain't got time for this.
Mm-mm.
It seems easier, but it's a trap. Tell that to P. Diddy.
It's like can't stop, won't stop. You sure about that? Let's put that to the test, right? Put that to the test. Yeah, but yeah. So the show's over, but it says that put him in bands. It says at Riblah in the land of Hamath, that he might not reign in Jerusalem, and put the land to a tribute of 100 talents of gold and 100 talents of silver and a talent of gold. And very reminiscent too of what happened to King Manasseh, right? For the wickedness that he was allowed to do. And it says he was carried away into Babylon captive after doing that wickedness. So we see similar thing happening here. And it's not going to be long before him and the successor that comes after, they're all going to face a similar fates. And you're going to see, like you said, Israel's going to do what? Instead of trusting in the Most High, they're going to trust in carnal means, going to trust in their riches, the things that Josiah was able to probably build up during his righteous reign, take that, squander it. And a theme we're going to see that's pretty heavy too is this dependence on this allegiance with Egypt. Because for these next couple of kings, it's going to be Nebuchadnezzar. He's going to be the new king on the block that the Most High is building up to show favor towards. And it's going to be a temptation to those who come after Josiah, as far as the kings, to want to use this Egyptian bond and use this Egyptian bond as like a means of protection, a means of allegiance to protect us from the incoming Babylonians. And it's not going to work out. But they're going to try it, though. And it's like scripture to talk about this. Curse men who make it flesh his arm. They trust in man. It's better to trust in the Lord than to trust in princes. All these scriptures are going to come into play as we see what's going to happen next with these next couple of kings as they trust in riches, wealth, instead of trusting in the power of the Most High and His protection. This same ally, this same allegiance in Egypt that they're trying, this fledgling alliance that they have in Egypt, for all their efforts to try to maintain it against Babylon, it's going to end up being a thorn in our side. But you,
Yeah, not related to what you were saying. Just pointing out when you looked at the ages of these of our kings, it's not like the ages of our so-called presidents, where most of them usually are 50, 60 years and above. You know, our kings was, you know, somewhere in the 20s, 30-year range. So it wasn't always, you know, like how we was reading in the Sabbath service, I think last week, about age dictating like your experience, right? It was easier, or it should have been easier for us to rule based on the law, right? You just needed to follow the law, and if you're 20, 30, 40, it should, you know, sustain itself.
As long as you're in the lineage.
Huh?
As long
Yeah, of
as-
course, yeah, you're in the lineage, but as far as for, like, you see a 23-year-old that's now being set up to rule, like, yo, man, that guy's only 23 years old. Right? Imagine somebody who just came out of college. That's your king, him, this guy. He's still wet behind the ears.
Mm-hmm.
But you had, you know, Josiah, who also reigned when he was, you know, young. David was anointed. He was anointed when he was still like teenager-ish, but didn't take the actual throne till he was 30. But still, you know, the age variance didn't dictate that you now had garnered the experience. It's just your spirit or your willingness to serve the Most High, right? To say, hey, I'm gonna have my whole heart with the Most High. And look, you know, some of what you're describing now, as far as for trusting in the other nations, I'm gonna side with the Egyptians to overcome the Babylonians. Instead of saying, I'm gonna side with the Most High, and then we'll see what happens. But that's the trial of man, is in his reasoning.
Well, as opposed to following the Most High, it was more of you being in the line of your father. Your father was king, you was next, because someone was 8 years old.
Right, I understand that. However, what I'm saying is, even in that, you see the disparity. It's always about they were either righteous, seldomly, or they were evil, but they were measured on that based on the law, right? They was measured based on how they kept, or most times did not keep the law of the Most High, right? That was in the law. That says anybody who's set up to be king, make sure they take this law, write it out, give it to them, and they make sure they read it every day so that they follow this and not something else.
It's like from Israel's standpoint, from the people, they'll gravitate towards the next one in line that's keeping the law, right? More than likely. But if it's the other nation that's gonna choose for us, they're gonna choose more than likely one that's not keeping the law, right, to put in power. And that's pretty much what the Egyptian would do. They would pick somebody that they know, if we don't keep the law, they can rule over us. But our people know that we gotta rule by the law. They will get one that's in the law, more than likely. Because that's what the Egyptians gonna do right here. Gonna appointed somebody that's like a puppet to them. That's gonna be a puppet.
Verse 34. And Pharaoh Necho made Eliakim the son of Josiah king in the root of Josiah his father, and turned his name to Jehoiakim.
Right.
It says, and took Jehoaz away, and he came to Egypt and died there. See that?
Right.
So took the one out of the way, but then took another one that was of that family. Like you said, context might be that he might be more favorable to bend to his own will.
Right.
And like we said before, empires, when they cease to be in the limelight, they still exist for some time afterwards. Right. They may not be the top player, but they still have different means, you know, different power, things they can leverage, lands, rivers, right? Things that they, and you know, manpower, of course, like we see here when it comes to battle. So it says he put this Eliakim in there, and even renamed him. At least the name was still a Hebrew name, because Otherwise, you'd be really like full fledged, like we saw before, where in the case of Joseph, they said, "Yeah, your name is this. Zeph Paneth Paneah, right? Give you just a whole Egyptian name," or like Nebuchadnezzar did with Daniel and his 3 friends. They say, "You know what? Your name is Belteshazzar now, Daniel. That's just what your name is now," et cetera, et cetera. But yet and still, we see now us having power at this point. The Most High as a punishment is allowing this Pharaoh of Egypt to take over. It says in 35, and Jehoiakim, that same as Eliakim, gave the silver and the gold to Pharaoh, so he paid this tribute. But he taxed the land to give the money according to the commandment of Pharaoh. He exacted the silver and the gold of the people of the land, of everyone according to his taxation, to give it to Pharaoh Necho. Right? So he said, "Yeah, let's do his bidding. Let's pay this tax. Right? Let's make an alliance, make an allegiance with this Pharaoh Necho. Let's make this allegiance with Egypt. Right? And let's see how this whole thing pans out."
I say this is the same. Like when we say modern day Babylon, modern day Egypt, they follow the same practices today, right? So whether he even made an alliance, just like we watched in that documentary on what's it called, End of Poverty, how they have people set up to go to these countries and they appoint or put people in political power that's going to serve their interests. And if you're in power and you don't serve their interests, they're going to conspire and put out propaganda to get you removed out of the way and then have somebody else come in there. Now, when that other person comes in there, they, like you said, as a puppet, they now have to serve the interests of that ruling authority. And then they're going to say, "Hey, we need those resources, right? We need your gold, your silver, right? Your this, your that. Right, whatever natural resources and things you have, we want that, right? So you're going to bleed your own people, right? You're going to tax and bleed your own people to serve the interests of that ruling party. So it's the same thing that happens today in various different countries around the world, where they put people in political power, and those who are not there, then there comes a propaganda or a war to remove them out of the way. Right, and it starts on the low levels. That's why in that documentary he says, "Yeah, first you're going to get an ambassador like me, right? You're going to get someone like me. I'm going to come have a sit down with you, little old puny white guy, and then just say, hey, wouldn't you like, right, a lot of money, right? We can give you whatever you want, you and your family, everything's going to be good. But then if you say no, right, then okay, I leave and then I go send." I send the jackals to come remove you out of the way. And if the jackals, the hitman, like how they did with the president down in Haiti, right? If they get you, okay, it's done. And then go put somebody else. But if they don't get you, then they're going to now wage a campaign where it's a military fight. Now the Marines and everyone else is coming in there because it's not going according to the plan. And we have to save, face in the eyes of society. So we're now going to go and wage a war. And then when we win the war, we move you out the way. We put somebody in place anyway. Yeah, that's how it goes. So you read, as we read this, it's like the same thing. Same practice. I'm going to take you out. Josiah, now you got to come here, and I'm going to put you in there. Now, when you in there, this was better happen, or else you're going to die. Right? Or else you're going to die. You, your kids, everybody else. You say, all right. I'll just do it up. Right? Just give me your silver and your gold. You be all right. Be okay. You make yourself a nice palace. Right? Make yourself a nice palace. Travel the world. Right? Travel the world. Enjoy it and have a good time. Make sure those taxes is on time. That's it.
It's like, what's your price? Because everybody got a price.
Mm-hmm.
Is your price money? Is your price nice mention? Women? What is it? Now, once you give what your price is, I like the
strong drink.
So you get all the nice, name brand liquor you can have, So that's what's your price? Right?
Or sometimes it could be just be like just being acknowledged by the people.
Right.
Notoriety.
Notoriety.
Put a cloak on with a little goofy crown of the enemy. I'm like, I got my crown. Like, look at me, everybody.
Right. Esteem. It's pretty much the same thing that we read. History repeats itself, and we see that's why the Mosai's refer to this as Egypt, right? And it's the same thing repeating. And the Mosai has something against Egypt up until this day, like the spirit, the idea behind Egypt, right? That's pretty much what the Mosai always and you can reference Isaiah 31. You can read on down from verse 1 on down. So you'll see Mosai said, "Woe unto him that go seek help in Egypt."
Right.
Right? That make man their refuge because they are not God. So America pretty much, there's a picture circulating around Trump in a seance. He dressed in red, and then you see he's making something on a pyramid, on top of pyramid, and you see a bunch of other people there. They all wearing masks. You can't see who. Then they all got robes on, and then they wearing a mask, and you see him with he had a coat on and a red coat, with a hoodie, and then he's putting something on the pyramid. So it's pretty much the same. What happened in the past, the same spirit of Egypt is right here in America.
Same devils. Yeah.
Yeah, same people, same thing.
Yeah. We can see we find I guess a clear copy of that. Maybe we could share it.
Right.
If you know the link for that picture. But so 31st chapter of Isaiah going into Egypt's prophecy. Link that with 2 Kings 24 and 34. Let's pick up the pace because I realized how much time it transpired. But this is 2 Kings 23. I'll read 35 again. It says, "And Joachim gave the silver and the gold to Pharaoh, but he taxed the land to give the money according to the commandment of Pharaoh. He exacted the silver and the gold of the people of the land, everyone according to his taxation, to give it to Pharaoh Necho." Then it says in 36, "Jehoiakim was 20 and 5 years old when he began to reign," so physically young again, right? Like 23, like it's his brother before him. "And he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Zebudah, the daughter of Pedaiah of Rumah." So we got 11 years, a little bit longer than 3 months, right? But yet and still, it says in 37, "He did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, according to all that his fathers had done." So he got a little bit of a lifeline, taking the knee to Egypt and saying, "Okay, no problem. We'll keep the taxes coming in." But even that couldn't save him in the end. And we had this this record of him ruling this way, and it's not a good record to have. And once again, these different events, you can find the parallel story in 2 Chronicles 36 as you read down, starting around like verse 5 as far as going into Jehoiakim. But in 2 Kings 24 and 1, it reads, "In his days," talking about Jehoiakim, it says, "Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came up." This is what we were talking about before, him being the new and the latest top king as far as the different nations are concerned. He's going to be the more dominant one now. The Most High is going to allow his time in the sun to be the top ruler. The other past empires like Assyria and Egypt, yeah, they're still there. They're still a kingdom, but they're not the top of them like how the Babylonians are. It says, "In his days, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came up, and Joachim came his servant 3 years." It says, "And he turned and rebelled against him." Right? So after serving him for 3 years, it says that he turned and rebelled against him. So when we look at the table and the changing of the guards, right? This is where we see a lot of history discussed during Yeah, we see a lot of history discussed during Jeremiah's writings of his book. We can see parallels of this as well, where he talks about these same changing of the guards, and then also them falling out with each other. So you just link this verse 1 with Jeremiah 25:1, where he refers to the same appointing of Nebuchadnezzar and then his dealings with Joachim. But Jeremiah 25 in verse 1, it says, so it reads, the word that came to Jeremiah concerning all the people of Judah in the 4th year of Joachim, the son of Josiah, king of Judah, that was the 1st year of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, right? And as you read down, it goes into prophecy as far as what's the befall us. When you read this chapter, us falling into the hands of the Babylonians and having to serve them for 70 years. When you read down, right? But same figures, same time period. Let you know that Nebuchadnezzar, his 1st year of his reign, being right after the 3 years that King Joachim had reigned. But back in 2 Kings 24, let me read on. It says in 2 Kings 24:2, 2 Kings 24 and verse 2, and the Lord, or Yahweh, sent against him bands of the Chaldees and bands of the Syrians and bands of the Moabites and bands of the children of Ammon, and sent them against Judah to destroy it according to the word of Yahweh, which he spake by his servants, the prophets, right? So when the Most High is a top nation that's in power, oftentimes they'll have other nations that have their own respective kingdoms be allied with them, right? As long as they're the top one, unless some sort of favor changes a circumstance, the other one can take the top spot. But they've all pretty much have been lined up together to pretty much come at us. When the Most High told us this, anytime we disobey him, these things would happen. Let me go back to chapter 20. Yeah, real quick. 2 Kings 20, going back to Hezekiah. Now we've got this this prophecy is now starting to be kicked off, unfortunately. But when you read to link with the 24:2, you can link it with 2 Kings chapter 20 and verse 17. This is what Isaiah is telling Hezekiah after he had the men of Babylon come and gave him a grand tour of all the facility, right, as far as the temple and the riches. So Isaiah tells him this. Behold, the days come that all that is in thine house, and that which thy fathers have laid up in store unto this day, shall be carried into Babylon. Nothing shall be left, saith Yahweh. And of thy sons which shall issue from thee, which thou shalt beget, shall they take away, and there shall be eunuchs in the palace of the king of Babylon. Right? So, going to take your sons away, and even certain of your sons will be made eunuchs to now serve the king of Babylon. So this is like way before Babylon would be that top player. But now some history later, because Hezekiah was way before this. That was back in like the 700s BC. Now we're in like the 600s BC, going into the 500s. But the Most High said it. It may have not happened in your lifetime, but here it is, and here we are. And he's having it come to pass what Isaiah talked about years ago. But back in 2 Kings 24, in verse 3, surely at the commandment of Yahweh came this upon Judah, to remove them out of his sight for the sins of Manasseh, according to all that he did. Right? So going back to 2 Kings 21 again, which I know we read enough of that earlier, but you go back to his chapter, you'll see all different things that he has to. But if we want to read a specific verse, we could read this. This is 2 Kings 21. I'll start from 10. So link with 24. A whole lot of stuff at once here. 24 and 4, link this with chapter 21, and I'll start at verse 10. So 2 Kings 21 and verse 10, it reads, "And the Lord spake by his servants, the prophets, saying," verse 11, "because Manasseh, king of Judah, had done these abominations, and had done wickedly above all that the Amorites did, which were before him, and had made Judah also to sin with his idols. Therefore, thus saith the Lord God of Israel, or Yahweh power of Yasharallah, or Yahweh Hayanal Yasharallah. Behold, I am bringing such evil upon Jerusalem and Judah, that whosoever heareth of it, both his ears shall tingle," right? As far as how bad it's going to be. "I will stretch over Jerusalem the line of Samaria, and the plummet of the house of Ahab. And I will wipe Jerusalem as a man wipeth a dish," wiping it and turning it upside down, right? We were reading about this some weeks back, right? We said, "Oh man, this is pretty rough," right? And what an image, right, to give us as far as how the Most High is going to handle the southern kingdom, like how he handled the northern kingdom. Hence the reference to the line of Samaria and the plummet of the house of Ahab. Just those being tools used to survey a land, right? It says, "And I will forsake the remnant of my inheritance and deliver them into the hand of their enemies, that they shall become a prey and a spoil to all their enemies, because they have done that which is evil in my sight, and have provoked me to anger since the day their fathers came forth out of Egypt, even unto this day. Moreover, Manasseh shed innocent blood very much, till he had filled Jerusalem from one end to another, besides his sin wherewith he made Judah to sin, in doing that which was evil in the sight of the Lord." So there's that judgment there. And we see it being made mention of again in 2 Kings 24, right? What's the scripture in Ecclesiastes, I think 3 and 17, where it says, that which has been already, but then it says how the Most High required that which is past, right? That and the thing, in the context, talking about the souls of men, the spirit of men. That's what makes us us. But then how our choices, they follow us. We can't escape them. And for King Manasseh and all the glory of his position and the height of his power, doing all these horrible things, it has to be answered for. Hence it being made a mention of here again. But that was 2 Kings 21. I read from 10 to 16 to link with 24 and 4 of 2 Kings. But back at 2 Kings 24, I'm in verse 5 now. It reads, "Now the rest of the acts of Jehoiakim and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah?" So once again, 2 Chronicles 35, 5 down to about 8, kind of covers these same particular events. It says, "So Jehoiakim slept with his fathers, and Joachim, or Chen, his son, reigned in his stead. It says, the king of Egypt came not again any more out of his land, for the king of Babylon had taken from the river of Egypt unto the river Euphrates all that pertained to the king of Egypt," right? So power plays, power moves being made. And it's interesting because these are going back to those 4 rivers we read about in Genesis, right? We got the Euphrates over in the east, but you got the Nile over in the west. So before, Nico would travel down toward us, but now that Nebuchadnezzar is the strong nation to come into power now, and he's blocking off different trade ports and roads of travel. that the Egyptians would have normally took. So that's what it's talking about here as far as this shift of power. So in verse 30, verse 8 of chapter 24, 2 Kings, and you'll see this sometimes written as Kaniah or Jeconiah, this Jehoiachin, right? You go into the Hebrews, makes it a little bit clearer. Sometimes you might look at the English spelling here in Chronicles and get a little confused. Just know them by the numbers in the succession. The name might be spelled a little differently from the English. It says Joachim or Joachim was 18 years old when he began to reign, so he was a youngster too. It says, and he reigned in Jerusalem 3 months. It's that really short time period again that we saw before with what was it? Not Jehoiakim, the one that came before him. It says, and his mother's name was Neshuta, the daughter of Elnathan of Jerusalem. It reads, and he did that which was evil in the sight of Yahweh, according to all that his father had done. So another evil king, and looks like I think after this we only got one more left. Well, I think had a bit of a longer reign, right? But we'll see exactly how this one reigned, and then follow up with that one next. It says, at that time, the servants of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came up against Jerusalem, and the city was besieged. So anytime you besiege a city, what are you doing? You're surrounding it, and you're blocking it as far as what trade coming in, right? If there's waterways that provide, water for like cooking or cleaning or washing things, they'll try to stop those up too, right? Any means by which the city nourishes itself, they're going to cut these things off to get compliance, right? Because you can't really sit down and parlay or create things or do things if you're starving, right? If you're famished, you starve a people or famish a people, you got their attention right away. And you're like, look, I need this. And now, you're moving from a place of desperation, right? Because if I don't, that's it, I'm dead. And like you guys were talking about earlier, they'll just come in, take away our corpses, and then just put themselves in place of us. So it says, in Joachim or Joachim, the king of Judah went out to the king of Babylon, he and his mother and his servants and his princes and his officers. And the king of Babylon took him in the 8th year of his reign, right? So Nebuchadnezzar pretty much had been ruling for 8 years at this point, right? We know when he came into power, Joachim was in his 3rd year going into his 4th year. So this is pretty much 3 years after that. 3 to 4 years after that, as far as it being in his 8th year of his reign, him taking over this Joachim, who will come in later. It says, and he carried out thence all the treasures of the house of Yahweh and the treasures of the king's house, and cut in pieces all the vessels of gold which Solomon, king of Israel, had made in the temple of Yahweh, as Yahweh had said. Right? So you just link the verse 13 with 1 Kings chapter 7. So yeah, it's going down. So it's really going down. It's going to happen in stages, but nonetheless, it's all falling apart. But now, for us reading this now, we see the reason why. That should be the main takeaway from what we're reading here. So with chapter 24 and 13, you can link 1 Kings chapter 7. 1 Kings chapter 7. And then you read from verse 8. 48. Actually, I'll start from 47. So 7 and 47, it says, and Solomon left all the vessels unweighed because they were exceeding many. Neither was the weight of the brass found out. Right? It's going to a time we had much increase, plentiful, right? Enough to even build a temple to serve the Lord our God in, right? And then to make a dedication of the temple in the next chapter. It reads in verse 48, and Solomon made all the vessels that pertain unto the house of Yahweh, the altar of gold, the table of gold whereupon the showbread was, and the candlesticks of pure gold, 5 on the right side, 5 on the left, before the oracle, with the flowers and the lamps and the tongs of gold. So the similar adornments that we had in the tabernacle, he's taking that and just making those now for the temple. And the bowls and the snuffers and the basins and the spoons and the censers of pure gold and the hinges of pure gold. So these are all things supposed to be used to serve and to celebrate the Most High. But now to a heathen king who's coming in to take over, he's like, oh man, all those things, if I don't want to, keep them, I'll keep some of them maybe as like trophies. But then for most of the stuff, I'll just take it, just break it down and make it into what I want, just add it to my coffers. I can see in some cases they might want to maintain the state of it. Other cases they might want to melt it down and turn it into something else, right? Depends on that king. All these things are meant for the service of God. It says, and the bowls and the snuffers and the basins and the spoons and the censers of pure gold and the hinges of gold, both for the doors of the inner house and the most holy place, and for the doors of the house, to wit, the temple. So has ended the work that all King Solomon had made for the house of Yahweh. Solomon brought in the things which David his father had dedicated, even the silver and the gold and the vessels did he put among the treasures of the house of Yahweh, right? Because where David did a lot of the, he amassed a lot of raw materials for his son Solomon's sake, so he could use that as a means to build the temple and to build certain portions of it and around it. But it wasn't for David to do since he had shed many wars. That's what the Most High told him. But yeah, so all these different, things as far as gold and silver and these precious vessels and things like that. The Most High, like I said, we can only imagine how the Most High felt okay in this or having this go down. But, like you said, Khan, earlier, try to put yourself in this where it's just like, wow, this really happened? Like probably the disbelief, not only of the king, but then just the people that were with him, in his court and the people at large. Like, wow, we got a whole city, we got a whole army surrounding the capital, right? Now we're thirsty, we're hungry. Like, what's going to go down? What's going to happen? And sure enough, this prophecy that's been going on, it's been said, it's coming in. So back to 2 Kings 24. I want to read verse 14 now. It reads, and he carried away all Jerusalem and all the princes and all the mighty men of valor, even 10,000 captives, and all the craftsmen and smiths, none remained, right? So the captains that fought in the military to defend Israel, even the craftsmen and the smiths, right? Those that built the different weapons, right? The create different outfits, right? Adornments, right? The skill aspect of the population, right? Which is going to be, benefit obviously to the Babylonians. They say, oh, I took you from your country. I'm going to use you for my purposes. I'm going to put you back. I'm going to put you to work so you can do what I want, right? We see this in the beginning of the book of Daniel, right? Where when the Babylonians came in during that wave, right? Which was, I think a little bit before this time here we're reading. But because we go into Daniel when he was taken, it was like, I think around the end of the 7th century BC or around 605, I think. But there was still a couple decades before, as we're going to read the events of what comes up in 2 Kings 25, whereas Jerusalem was being utterly destroyed. So they took away some of us at different times in spurts, but then eventually, by the time of 586, that's when it was completely destroyed. But it took a while, it took some time, it took some decades for it to, and it's pretty much come in and destroy and take everything. And the prophets kind of wrote during those times, right? Going back to the 600s BC up into the early 600s, leading up into the high 500s, finally culminating in 586 BC. But it says they took all this stuff, they took the skilled workers and the soldiers. It says, and carried away Jehoiakim to Babylon, and the king's mother, and the king's
I
wives.
think you skipped off of 14.
Okay, I'll read it again. And he carried away all Jerusalem, and all the princes, and all the mighty men of valor, even 10,000 captives, and all the craftsmen and smiths. None remained, save the poorest sort of the people of the land. Right? So that's the idea. It's just like I said, to squeeze the life juice out of a country, and you want to, if anything, you want to take over somebody or annex a country, you want to take their best and brightest, their strongest, and then get them to work for you. You know, it's better off than just killing everybody, because that's going to take time, effort, energy, even on your behalf, even if you're more skilled than them. You know, the better way is to say, you know what, let me just get them to work for me, and then I can just get them to pay me tribute. Or if they don't want to work for me, then we figure out some kind of way to have them have a coup within themselves, so that we can get a puppet ruler in there that's going to be more favorable to what I'm trying to do, right? But all in all, because of the Most High's judgment, he said, yeah, we're not going to have any of that, right? Your king's got to go, and the people are going to be taken away. That's all I have.
Right. I would say that's how you take over a nation. Take over by destroying the human resources.
Right.
Deprive the country of all the skilled workers, all the professionals.
Mm-hmm.
Take them out so they can come serve you, and then you leave just the poor people in the country. Then you bring your people over to reform the poor people, and then that's how you take over. You know, bring your puppet there and give him instruction. Going forward, is how we're gonna run this thing, and then take over. Before you know it, after many years, now that nation bear your name, and now it's yours. That's how you conquer a nation. Like, and that's pretty much what Biden is doing. You know, when Haiti, you give people a free pass to come over here,
Mm-hmm.
right? Everybody that can work, you know, that the country becomes so destabilized, right? They create the destabilization, and then make the people, seems like voluntarily they want to come in to the U.S. and give them a free way to come in, and you know, now you leave the people that cannot travel with the gangs, right? After a while, then you're gonna come in and do the takeover. Say, see, they cannot take care of themselves. Like, right in the face of the earth, we can't have this thing going on right here in our backyard. We gotta come in.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of see the same thing in North America, right? With the Judah and the whole segregation movement, right? Where, you know, MLK and others, at least what's on paper, you see them fighting for one thing, but then, like you guys were talking about not too long ago, you know, coming into a house that's on fire, you just didn't realize it until you went inside and you said, oh man, I thought it was one thing, it was something else. I think it was Harry Belafonte. He had referenced this quote from MLK, right? To where when we were segregated, it was like, okay, at least we had our, to quote loosely, W.B. Du Bois, our talented 10th, you know, in our neighborhoods, supporting communities and, you know, certain parts of the city. And every city you go to, you probably could find a history like that. Here, I know in Philly, you had Columbia Avenue, which then became Cecil B. Moore Avenue, right? Where you had a lot of our people, you know, that were, like we read here, craftsmen, artisans, right? Doctors, lawyers, different professions, right? But then Esau taking a page out of the past and implementing these same tactics to say, okay, let me take your best and brightest, your sharpest, and let me give them an offer they can't refuse, right? Let me give them a golden ticket into heaven on earth. Leave those neighborhoods, right? Yeah, you want to have integration? Sure, no problem. But it'll make it easier for your best and strongest to go and leave the neighborhood and go to suburbs, you know, live a better life, you know, and leave the poor people behind, because that'll make it easy for us and our police to squash them. And you see that pretty much in every major city you look at throughout the United States, they implement the same kind of tactic, you know, over these past decades. And, you know, by the time Israel realized what happened, you know, thinking that they were moving on up, as they say, you know, they realized, oh, they drank the Kool-Aid, you know, and it was spiked. And we're pretty much left out there. But all the things pretty much used to employ the rhetoric behind why this would be a good thing. But in the end, together we're always stronger. But that's not enough, because in the world you'll hear that, yeah, we gotta get together. We gotta stick together, right? But in the world, you'll see other nations talk about that, and we talk about it too. But we gotta stick together in the name of the Lord, because just coming together as one people, that's not enough. So we can have 1 million man, 1 million family, 1 million more march. It won't matter unless we're together in the Most High's name. That's what has to happen in order for this to work. Otherwise, we're subject to something like this, as far as what's happening to us. So it says, say the poorest sort of the people of the land, to link with 24 and 14. I keep referencing it, but I'll just read it real quick in Daniel chapter 1. If we're not familiar already, because this has been a thing Nebuchadnezzar was doing in stages, because it wasn't just, I'll come in and take everybody at once. He was coming and taking us throughout the years, like from the time of Josiah going forward, during the reigns of his sons. He'll come and take some of us here, take some of us there, but I said led up to the ultimate destruction, finally in 586. This was going on for quite some time before it was utterly destroyed. The siege wasn't just something that happened overnight. The siege was going on for a while, and when the destruction happened, that's what things really started to speed up. But all in all, Josiah, when you read about that in Jeremiah, he had Jeremiah plead with the kings that remained, namely Zedekiah. We haven't read about yet, but we're to get to him. To say, look, don't trust in man. Don't trust in your own arm. Don't trust in your ally, your allegiance with Egypt. If you trust in me and you repent, everything will be cool, right? Nebuchadnezzar won't be a problem for you. But they didn't do that. They trusted in their own flesh. They trusted in their own arm. And they paid for it. I should say we paid for it. But yeah, this is a Daniel chapter 1. If I can get it. Ezekiel, Daniel, chapter 1. It reads, in the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, into Jerusalem to besiege it. We read about earlier in Jeremiah 25 and 1, and a couple of verses up, right? As far as that time period. And the Lord gave Jehoiakim, the king of Judah, into his hand, with part of the vessels of the house of God, we read about before in 1 Kings chapter 7, as far as what those vessels were. It says, which he carried into the land of Shinar, right? That's in their land, to the house of his God, right? And he brought the vessels into the treasure house of his God, right? So like we said, it's only it's a good question what he decided to do with those treasures. Keep them intact, melt them down, turn them into something else, make them into his own coins, right? Make them into some sort of dedication to his God. And the king spake unto Ashpenaz, the master of his eunuchs, that he should bring certain of the children of Israel, and of the king's seed, and of the princes, right? So the best of the best, the creme de la creme, right? The well-trained, the well-ordered. It says, children whom was no blemish, but well-favored, and skillful in all wisdom, and cunning and knowledge and understanding science, right? So like we say today, the best and the brightest, right? And like we were touching on earlier, Kahan, as far as what they do in Haiti, you see, even here in the States, this is kind of happening for a while, with the wars either direct and indirect that are waged overseas to destabilize countries. You'll see people from those countries come over to the U.S., right? Whether it be from Africa or be from Southeast Asia, right? They'll come over to the U.S., they'll come over to the U.K., right? Countries in Europe, they'll go to uni in these different places, right? And then, in some cases, but you can probably count those on one hand. After they finish uni, then they say, let me go back and help build up Nigeria, or help, build up India, or help build up this. But it's just like, no, they stay in school. They might get to become an engineer or become a doctor or something like that. They stay in the U.S. And that works to Esau's favor. He's like, yeah, come over to Ivy League schools, right? Come over to UPenn, come over to Columbia, or come over to Oxford and Cambridge, right? And compete and get degrees from where we're at. And then you talk to those folks later after those kids, go to school here. They don't want to go back.
Right.
It's too much work and it's too much, civil war and conflict that that Esau had left behind due to leaving that void. Like you said with the gangs in Haiti. It's not the only place that's happening as far as a void of power being left once they take out whatever leaders had some sense of stability, but then didn't want to play ball when it came to like, oh, we're not just give up our resource. We're going to sit down at the table and come up with an agreement, which Esau, doesn't like.
Right. It's a long game because you have to be conscious to come here and want to go back after you done settle.
Mm-hmm.
You done see, you used to a bunch of stuff, light and infrastructure, electricity 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
Like, man, now you become complacent. Say, man, should I go back to this for what reason? It's far gone, man. There's nothing I can do, just little me, right? And that was the plan,
right?
Because you're not. It's very difficult that you're gonna find somebody that's gonna go back, unless they, very patriotic,
right?
Or like the Chinese, they would make money here, go to university, and then they go back home, help rebuild their home. It's very, very difficult.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's not gonna be in everybody's agenda. Once you have kids and settle in this life in America, you have a family, you get a mortgage, and it's a wrap. It's done deal. You can go on vacation for 2 weeks, and you gotta come right back here.
So we see it in the past, we see it happening again, right? Things written aforetime, written for our learning, I think should be the big takeaway for today's reading. And then we'll read next time when we finish up in 2 Kings 25, going into 1 Chronicles. Yep. So back to 2 Kings 23. I think we had a couple verses left before we finish up.
You better wait. Oh, I thought you were reading all the way down to 4.
Oh, where we at?
Using Daniels.
I didn't finish. Oh, I didn't finish. What's going on? You're right. I'll read from the top. Verse 4. Children in whom was no blemish, but well favored, and skillful in all wisdom, and cunning in knowledge, and understanding science. So it's just showing you that science didn't start with the so-called white man. It didn't start in the Middle Ages with Galileo, and the sun is the center of the universe, not the earth, and oppositions of science, falsely so-called, that Paul warned Timothy to be mindful of, right? Because we always deal with science. I mean, that's the whole point of miracles, right? You can't really define a miracle without understanding the laws of nature as far as the way things are typically go, right? That's what the plagues in Egypt were, right? It was going against the laws of nature, which even the Egyptians knew and even knew how to subvert, getting into, you might call it the laws of supernature or the supernatural by tapping into art magic, like it says in Wisdom of Solomon. So it didn't start with them. The other dark nations that ruled before, these past kingdoms, they knew about science. They knew about the nature of things and how to render things. Yeah, we know a lot now. Yeah, we do things that we didn't do before, with as far as the planes, trains, automobiles, computers, etc. But it wasn't like the past king were just living under a rock. They had no idea about the nature of anything. It's just not true.
Right. It's Christ science is the true science. Like, you get healed once and for all, as opposed to profitable science. Right. You put data out for the purpose of making money, get people sick in the long term, create pharmaceuticals, and get people hooked on medicine, so you can make money in the long run. That's false science. Science falsely so called, right? Because it's not. You fix the problem and it's done. Because Christ is about fixing the problem, it's done. Now he's for the people, not for his pocket. Just to profit in the long term. Make sure that you give them a little bit and prolong it over length of time until they die off that medicine, right? And then boom, the next generation, you're doing the same thing. That's false science.
Yes, indeed. Oh, just you guys, you write it down, referencing First Timothy 6:20. That's the verse we're talking about right now. to link with Daniel chapter 1, verses 1 and 4. 1 Timothy chapter 6 and 20. You can read that real quick, quiet. Where
you going?
1 Timothy 6 and 20. Just read that real quick. And then I'm going to finish up this verse 4 here. And then we'll go back to 2 Kings.
1 Timothy 6 and 20.
Yeah.
1 Timothy chapter 6 and verse 20. O Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy trust, avoiding profane and vain babblings, and oppositions of science falsely so called.
Okay. So warning Timothy to watch out for those, not to get caught up in those unprofitable discussions concerning. So in short, we use just very plainly say when we're talking about science, we're just talking about anything pertaining to the laws of nature, right? As far as the different elements and how they work. Things that we see Solomon was even shown directly from God, right? You know, today we might call it like biology, chemistry, things of that nature, right? Going into a finer detail, even physics beneath all that. But all these things are pretty much part of how nature works under its natural course. And then you could argue and say, once again, when it comes to the laws of supernature or the supernatural, now you're dealing with science of a higher order. So you might have what we call material science or physical science. Then you have the spiritual science, which there's still laws behind it, right? But to get the changes of spiritual science, that's where you're dealing with, you know, things of a higher order when the Elohim come in, whether it be on the right hand or the left hand side, right? Like we saw with the magicians going head to head with Moses throwing their staves down. There's a law behind that, how to achieve that, right? But it's more of a spiritual science as opposed to a physical side of science. And then Moses, you know, dealing with that same thing, but in its pure righteous, unadulterated form, like he touched on before, threw his staff down, his 8 bears, right? But all in all, we're seeing that this is a power move that any kingdom does, even we do it when we come into power, to get the best and brightest, the strongest, the most productive, and to get them to be a part of your kingdom so that they can work towards furthering your goals, furthering your enterprise.
Right, to the point where they open the argument, they make that into an argument. Oh, are you against science?
Right.
Right now they want to own science.
Mm-hmm.
When in fact that what everything you just broke down. Yeah, do you believe in science? You know, it's not a question we believe in science. We use science.
Right.
Right? We don't believe in science because science is the true science is of the Most High.
Right.
Right? But it's not a question, do you believe it? Like they want to own the word, you know, science. Do you believe in science?
Mm-hmm.
Man, science.
Right.
Okay. Which, you know, like a tree of knowledge of good and evil, it has parts of it that is useful, right? But then the other parts of it where it's just like, that's just theory. And other times it's straight up just poppycock. Like, that's just utter nonsense. But some person that had a degree from some fancy university said it was so everyone's like, oh, must be. But it's like, but how do you know that? You don't know that for sure. So finally, the last part of Daniel chapter 1, verse 4, it says, and such as had ability in them to stand in the king's palace, and whom they might teach the learning and the tongue or language of the Chaldeans, right? So I like reading that section there in Daniel. It goes on what we're reading here, but we oftentimes go into that when we're talking about like what happened to us during the transatlantic slave trade. They did the same thing when they rounded us up on the ships, you know. It wasn't always just, you know, oh, everybody get on the ship, but they looked at that too to say, oh, how many of all these people we're about to take captive, who are like higher in society? Like who are the griots, the ones that like the storytellers and the scribes that keep track of the records and things like that? They made note of that, right? When they were taking us in the western coast of Africa, and you know, utilized us when they brought us to, you know, whatever island we were brought to, or if it was North America or South America, where they were taking us. You know, they utilized that and kept those records. You know, we lost ours, but they made records for themselves, right? When it came to, you know, dripping out the juice, that was said, on the plantation, wherever we were taken and throughout the Americas, they could utilize us accordingly. Okay, these ones here, I'm gonna use these for manual labor or more menial tasks and chop down trees and lumber. Whereas these here, I'm gonna use you guys in the workshop. I'm gonna have you guys fixing horseshoes and fixing wagons and dealing with more mechanical things, right? So they put us to work where we would suit them best. And that happens even to this day. So back to 2 Kings 24. Let's wrap this up. 2 Kings chapter 24. I'll read 15 and 16 again. It says, and he carried away Joachim to Babylon, and the king's mother, and the king's wives, and his officers, and the mighty of the land, those carried he into captivity from Jerusalem to Babylon. So it took us eastward. You look on the map, like northward and then eastward. You go to where modern day Iraq is. That's where Babylon was seated, as far as location. And all the men of might, even 7,000, and craftsmen and smiths 1,000, all that were strong and apt for war, even them, king of Babylon, have brought captive to Babylon. So you see the emphasis on that, right? Like, as you read it, looking back, you say, oh my God, that was supposed to be for us. That was supposed to be our fighting force, you know? That's supposed to be the strength of our nation. But now it's being absorbed by this invader, this outsider. The king of Babylon made Mattaniah, his father's brother,
Uncle.
king in his stead, and changed his name to Zedekiah. Right. So now we're getting to the last king of Judah, if you will, which we'll get into his story as we read in chapter 25 next time in more detail. So it says Zedekiah was 21 years old when he began to reign. And he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Hamutal, the daughter of Jeremiah of Libnah, right? Because we're dealing with pretty much this same family after Josiah, but it's not going in successions because since the Most High's allowed the heathen to come in and kind of take control of things, now it's like, okay, now I'm gonna take you out and have your brother rule. I'm gonna take you out and have your uncle rule, or your father, what have you, rule, and do it like that. It says the daughter of Jeremiah of Libnah, it says 19, and he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, or Yahweh, according to all that Joachim had done, right? For through the anger of Yahweh it came to pass in Jerusalem and Judah, until he had cast them out from his presence, that Zedekiah rebelled against the king of Babylon, right? So we'll get into more of that too, as far as how these different men like Joachim, and then we got Zedekiah doing the same as far as rebelling against Babylon, right? Trying to figure out some kind of way to not pay dues or not take the knee and whatnot. And as we're going to read, try to reestablish how Necho was taxing us, seeing they can use that connection they had with Egypt as a means to escape Babylon, escape Nebuchadnezzar's power. But for any of us that read this history and know how it is now, we know that, when it comes to Nebuchadnezzar, the Most High's got him on the top seat. And if you're not dealing with him as far as righteousness, he's coming for you, and it included us too. Like I said, when we get into 2 Kings 25, we'll get more of those details. And remember, this just parallels 2 Chronicles 36. We pretty much read, and we went down, I think, to the equivalent of, you go to 2 Chronicles 36, and you read from 9 down to 13. It just says, Joachim was 8 years old when he began to reign, and his reign was 3 months and 10 days in Jerusalem. And he did that which was evil in the sight of Yahweh. When the year was expired, King Nebuchadnezzar sent and brought him to Babylon with the goodly vessels of the house of Yahweh, and made Zedekiah his brother's king over Judah and Jerusalem. Zedekiah was 1 and 20 years old when he began to reign, and reigned 11 years in Jerusalem, like we read before. And he did that which was evil in the sight of Yahweh, his power, and humbled not himself before Jeremiah the prophet, speaking from the mouth of Yahweh, which we can probably touch on that too when we go into we go back to 2 Kings 25. It kind of also echoes the verse you read earlier, right, Khan, and First Esdras, going into how them not is being recorded, them not listening to Jeremiah. But he said, listen, guys, you can't do that, right? And he told Josiah, don't go to war with Necho, right? Or anything else he might have told him, right? Concerning Necho and the war that they were fighting with between the Egyptians and the Assyrians. It says Zedekiah was 121 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. We reckon Kings, and humbled not himself before Jeremiah the prophet, speaking from the mouth of the Lord. And he also rebelled against King Nebuchadnezzar, who had made him swear by God, but he stiffened his neck and hardened his heart from turning unto the Yahweh power of Israel. Just stop there with that link. But yeah, that was 2 Chronicles 36, 9 down to 13. To go with 2 Kings 24, 17 down to 20. I think I saw a hand.
Right. Like if you look at the parallel of what the Mosai did with Nebuchadnezzar, and you put it into the modern day Babylon, you see pretty much the same thing. The Mosai raised Nebuchadnezzar to the point where he becomes so top notch as a king, right? Mm-hmm. Same way you have America rise up. Everybody's scared of America. He's coming for you. If you talk bad about America, they come and take you out, and then they put democracy and they start running things, right? To the point where now, they get to the point where they say, you know what? Who can bring us down?
Right. Obadiah.
Yeah, who can bring us down? So now I say, I'm gonna be, the set my nest among the stars, and then the Most High brings them down. So it's the same, history repeats itself. Same thing happening.
Come. And Esau, man, these guys taking, like I said, going out of the playbook of all these past Hamite empires, right? Taking the worst of what they did and saying, let's take it and do it, more wicked, right? Now we'll infuse technology into it and take it to the next level, as far as our worship of the host of heaven, as far as our idolatry, even down here on this level, and tactics when it comes to taking over countries and taking their best and brightest. It's like Esau pretty much took all the different spirits of the past Hamite empires and other empires too, and then pretty much made it his own, and then just tried to enhance it. But if we know the results for their empire was to be broken, you go over there now, all you see is just like a barren wasteland. When you go to Iraq now, they call it the Khazar, but you can see pretty much the remains of this Babylon we're reading about here on the Nebuchadnezzar. You see all like the remains of like the homes, like the houses they built out of clay and stuff like that, like the cities. You'll see the city laid out, but then it's just all dried out, right? No color, void of color. Nobody's living there anymore. They live somewhere else. And you say, wow, this place used to be it. This used to be the spot to come to do trade, commerce, right? To fulfill your dreams, right? I want to be the richest man in Babylon, like that book, But look at it now, and you say, wow. And then other places you can't even go to. You can't even go to the remains. Like Sodom and Gomorrah, that whole place has got utterly torched. You might have a region. Okay, it was probably the scholars scratched their heads to this day trying to figure out. We think it's somewhere around here, but we can't really find it. And then they claim that they found this pillar of salt. It's supposed to be Lot's wife. They say this might be the pillar of salt because it's like this funny rock formation or whatever that's out there in some place over in the Middle East. They think, yeah, based on records, we think this might be the pillar of salt, but they can't confirm. But the message should be clear: serve the Most High God, follow His laws, His commandments. Otherwise, you will have a horrible end, and it'll be recorded for It'll be recorded for time to be known that, look, this nation here served idols, went against the true and living God, and here's the result of all their glory. can't read this enough, but Proverbs 14. Proverbs 14 and 34, where it reads, righteousness exalteth a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. So we go into those discussions sometimes, who was given the law? Who knew the law? Who should be held accountable to the law? We know who's given the law. We know the nations may heard of the law. They had taught aspects of it, handed aspects of it down to their kids. But in the end, any nation without the law, even though we've been the only people on record to actually keep it for any modicum of time, and Ezra talks about that in his second Esdras. But any nation, when they've had their time in the sun, that set themselves up, the fact that they didn't deal with the law and uphold the law, that's like that is the sole core reason why their history, literally and figuratively. Your history, you were in the past, but then your history, man, you're done, so you're out of here, right? You couldn't hold on to it. I know that was a question you would ask a lot, Khan, when we get like the people into Egyptology, and you just be like, okay, so Egypt, okay, they were a mighty empire, but now they're so great, then what happened? Well, come on, brother, CC, why you gotta be like that? It's just like, what? Don't get in your feelings. I'm asking a legitimate question. What happened? Why did they fall apart? And see if they're honest. See if they say something like, yeah, well, they had corruption from within, even if it might come from a place of ignorance. See if they're gonna actually speak to why the culture that they praise so much, why it fell to pieces. And it's weird because it's almost like a spiritual echo in a sense, where similar to how we see with the kings of Judah right now, with Zedekiah being the current one, wanting to cleave to Egypt for help and, for succor. It's almost like a similar plea right now, like what people do that are into the Egyptology, right? It's like they allied themselves to Egypt yet again, when Egypt was the one that's been kicking their behind. It's been leaving them short.
And if they were so smart in their doctrine, they would have said, listen, we didn't get destroyed. We emerged. Look at the dollar bill. It's still here, man.
Well,
right here. Right here. We still go back. We didn't just die, we multiply.
So Esau is so pretty much it goes right back to our the prophecy is in our scriptures, which is Esau's spiritual Egypt too.
Right.
But yet and still, you can still put that on our people that are into that, to say, anybody into Egyptology to say, but the people themselves, Mizraim, these guys are no longer in the picture. You go to Egypt, it's mostly Ishmael and but as far as like Ham, they're usually off on the outskirts. They're not really calling any shots over there. And that's not by accident either. Because Mizraim is still on the earth, right? But like I said, you go to Egypt, you don't even think of them at all. You just think of Ishmael mostly. They're the ones that government, heads of industry, et cetera, et cetera. Got making all that money off that Suez Canal. That's not Mizraim anymore. Mm-mm. They're not the people calling the shots over there anymore. It's kind of ironic too that Ishmael's mom Hagar was a Mizraim, right? So. Okay, so that was Proverbs 14:34. Just as a scripture at the end. So yeah, when we come back to this 3 weeks from now, we'll be going into 2 Kings 25 and connecting some dots with Jeremiah, Lord's will, to kind of support what we're seeing here in 2 Kings 25, since Jeremiah has some very vivid details too. A lot of the details are parallel, since Jeremiah was that one of the main prophets, not the only one of the main prophets to be there up until the very end to edify all the kings that came after Josiah to repent and to turn back to the Lord. Even though they mocked him, threw him in prison, right? And did other things. And more or less became the nail in the coffin for the kingdom of Judah. But most times when we get into that, we can go into those unfortunate but also very edifying details. But yeah, we'll make an end here. It looks like we almost made a Hebrew watch 4 hours, but let's do some house cleaning real quick for folks watching. And then I usually do this too. I forgot to do this. So if you didn't know, what you see in the title here, besides the scrolling marquee at the bottom, of course, but what you see here in the Hebrew is a Shah, a Ba, and a Tha, which is Shabbat, how you say Sabbath. Then we have a Shah, a La, a Wa, and a Ma, which together is Shalom, which means peace or like peaceful Sabbath. Then we have a Ya, a Shah, a Ra, a Ah, and a La, which together is Yasha'ah La, or Israel. That's how you say Israel in Hebrew. So feel free to tune into our conference line every Tuesday and Friday from 7 to 10 p.m. The number is listed below, 667-770-1085, with an access code of 521455. And while we had that going on the teleconference line, we also have a live stream, not so much a live stream like on YouTube, but on Zoom. When you go to the website, www.profitabletalks.com, as you see it spelled there, PROFITABLETALKS.com. Just make sure you have Zoom installed on whatever your device you're using, whether it be your phone, your tablet, your laptop, your desktop computer, etc. And then it should pull the app up, but all the credentials should be already taken care of. If not, it may have you log in with your Google account. I would just say use your Google account to log in, whatever email you want to designate to that. Okay. And if anyone wants to donate to the school, we have our address here, spelled the way you see it, H-A, and then Y-A-S-H-A-R-H-L-A, which is Yasha'Allah, and then K-N-A-S, Kanas, 3826B, Germantown Avenue, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 19140. So definitely, if you want to have or want to send a check or a money order, you could do it like that. If you wanted to also contribute to the school, whether it be, like I said, for tithes, for free will offerings, for like a holy day that we're doing, etc., you could do it this way. But then you could also electronically do it this way over PayPal, which is paypal.me/HYK12, or you could Zelle it to us at 646-620-7378. Okay. Remember to like and share the video so that we can get more and more of our people woken up to this truth, as more and more branches of Christ out there are waking up to this knowledge and spreading this true gospel, not this false gospel we've been given, as far as a Christ that don't look like us, that came to all nations on the earth, right? Because that gospel's all over. So that can't be the true gospel, because what does it say? I'll read this real quick before we do the closing prayers. This is Matthew chapter 24. So Matthew chapter 24. In verse 14, Matthew 24 and verse 14 reads, "And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come." See that? So the gospel, the good news, shall be preached in the world, in all the world for witness unto all nations. So that's talking about our people that have been scattered amongst all nations, and even the heathen that we've been scattered amongst, that have been, in some cases, taken us and brought them to where they're at. So this God says be preaching to all of them. And it says, and then shall the end come. So there's still work to be done, right? Through different mediums that we might be using, whether it be mouth to mouth, over the phone, over video like we're doing here, right? The word still has to go out to where our people are scattered out. So throughout the Americas, especially, but also in the other continents too, where people are scattered. But the fake so-called Christianity, everyone's been hearing that, right? I can go to these different islands and different places and see, a Jehovah's Witness out there, or like a Seventh-day Adventist over here, right? Or a Baptist over there. So they've been hearing that gospel, but clearly that's not the gospel that Christ is talking about. That's another gospel, another spirit, right? A false Christ, which Christ himself warned us about, right? What did he say in verse 5? For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. See that? And you go down to verse 23, he says, if any man shall say unto you, lo, here is Christ, or there, believe it not, it says in 24, for there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that, if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. See that? So it says, if it were possible, they should deceive the very elect. So we're not ones to be deceived, right? As long as the Holy Spirit is our guide to show us who the true Christ is. So that's who we come to preach. So once again, like I said before, we look forward to that day when the true Christ make the second coming. And may all the other branches of Christ out there continue to pave the way as we will to Christ coming back, so that these prophecies can be fulfilled. So continue to watch and pray, Israel. Continue to watch the signs of the times. Continue to watch not just what they talk about, what they tend to focus on in the media that's on front page. Yeah, take note of that so that you can address it. We'll talk about it. Look at, second, third, fourth page too, because, even they're reporting on those things too. Like you read about in chapters like this, Matthew 24, or like Mark 13 or Luke 21, where it talks about the what's going to happen in the end times. Famines, pestilences, earthquakes in diverse places, right? In scholarship, they refer to it as the Olivet Discourse, which is just talking about Christ giving the disciples the signs of the end on the Mount of Olives, right? Which came up, today during our Sabbath reading. So let's take heed to those prophecies, take heed to the true Christ, the true message of what's to come, and get ourselves ready until that great day we look forward to. It's going to be great. It's going to be dreadful at the same time. It's going to be a joyful day for us. Even some, might even be a little terrifying. Our hope being that we made the team, but it's going to be exceeding dreadful for the other part of our people and the other nations. Okay. So enjoy the rest of your Sabbath day. Those that are still with us, hope you found the service edifying as far as the scriptures we went through, and the link ups that we got. And we'll be talking to you guys this upcoming week in the Tuesdays and Friday classes. If I didn't mention already, next week we're going back to the New Testament, and we're going to be reading Revelation. I'm trying to make sure I read the right one. Chapters 7 and 8. Revelations chapter 7 and 8 is going to be next week's reading. So this is Nabia Zerubbabel signing off. Like I said, enjoy the rest of your Sabbath day, everyone. And with that, we'll do the closing prayers. Nice. Got it too fast. Got a little rope-a-dopey. Barakatah Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai Asherat and Anal Par Yagaban Thwada Aman La Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai Ath Yashra. Okay. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the fruit of the vine. Thank you, so be it. To Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, with Israel. Slacky, we'll mute it a little bit for closing prayers. We're back. Amadwa, Panyawa, Jerusalem, stand face Jerusalem. Shofar ensemble. Yahweh, Ba'Shem, Yahweh Shai, Habakkuk Shai, Shemai, Lanawa, Aitha, Yam Yam, Aitha, Shalak, Ma'aka Allah, Wa'alahayim, Tazwadakim, La, Shemar Ayel, Barak, Rapah, Magun, Wa'chaziyat, Banya, Yasharella, Washalak, Lanawa, Rabian, Hakamah, Rabian, Da'ait, Rabian, Bayana, Rabian, Sabalanwa, Rabian, Amawan, Rabian, Aqua, Rabian, Ahabian, Rabian, Hagana, Rochanaya, Wasalak, Ko, Katayamna, La Akim, Wa'akiwa, Wayasha'ala, Tamyad, Waiwalam, Ba'Shem, Yahweh Shai, the water, Amen. English translation. Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, please listen to us now. Right now, send Michael and the righteous powers to watch over, bless, heal, protect, and make strong the children of Israel. And send to us much wisdom, much knowledge, much understanding, much patience, much faith, much brotherhood, much love, much spiritual protection, and forgive all our sins. For the brothers, sisters in Israel, always and forever, in the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you, so be it. Four corners prayer. Yahweh, Ba'Shem, Yahweh Shai, Barak Nawa, Wayasha'ala, Wabathya Sapari, Shema, Yasharele, Yahweh, Allah, Yahweh, nice. Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, blesses Israel in the house of books. That's what you said. And then we said, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. All right. So that will say a Shar Shabbat once again, a happy Sabbath, Wa Manacha Tawab, and good afternoon.